Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Between the Lines podcast. The podcast that is probably number 587, except it's not because we don't really have a consistent thing. Today, I have a very special guest. Why don't you introduce yourself, good sir?
Well, first of all, I prefer podcasts 1 through 586. That's just me. My name is Jake Camara, author of The Devil's League and creator of hot quality content, current editor of that channel as well, and guy who appears at conventions on occasion, sells his books, meets celebrities, get things signed. Just a fun time. And I also work a day job that isn't as exciting as any of that stuff.
Well, that happens. Yeah, just a little background. Me and Jake met on the Universal Monsters subreddit. He said he made a Universal Monsters podcast, and I hit him up on a whim saying, "Are you looking for guest stars?" And he hit me back, and I appeared on his show where I vehemently died on the hill that saying Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman is a masterpiece, and then defended the rest of the films, and we had a very long discussion about it.
Yes, we share a love for the classic Universal monster movies, but not all of them.
Not all of them, not at all. But you know what? That's completely fine, because I think I'm probably one of 5 people who actually likes Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman, so that's completely fine. After that, he sent me his book, The Devil's League, and I've appeared one other time on his podcast, and we've just been talking through those rest few months. We've become really good friends. I if I may say.
You may indeed. I would agree. I would concord with that statement.
Yes. We will be discussing his book in detail, along with spoilers, but there will be a spoiler-free section first, and I do encourage all of you who are listening, there will be a link in the description, to go ahead and purchase Jake's book. I do recommend it. I think it's a great time, and I think you'll find a lot to enjoy about it. With that said, there is a structure to this. So first off, as always, I'm going to say what I've been up to. Currently, I've been playing... In terms of games, I've been playing Sonic X Shadow Generations, but really just Shadow Generations. Amazing Sonic game. Really highly recommend it. Gameplay's amazing. I'm freaking addicted to all 9 levels. And yeah, in terms of... What are you, Jake? Do you play any video games or have any fun recreational activities?
Yeah, well, boy, do I. But yeah, I play video games on occasion. I used to a lot more. It just boils down to time, because, like, you got to dedicate time to actually get things done, be productive, be creative in some way. And, there's time-passing things like video games. Gotta say, games I always fall back on in terms of, like, I can just turn my brain off and vibe and have a good time are Batman, the Arkham series, that whole shebang. Assassin's Creed Black Flag, which is, like, a hidden masterpiece in the Assassin's Creed saga. And I would probably say Jak and Daxter. They recently released the emulations on PS4. They just ported it over, basically.
Oh, sick.
And I put that on my PS5. So it's literally the PS2 games on a PS5 with, like, no control correction, so it's kind of buggy. But it's great. It's just so fun.
That's great. Yeah, no, I Black Flag always looks interesting. I hear good things. I have it on Switch, but I haven't been able to play it. And I definitely know how you feel with video games. I love video games, and it's definitely been a passion of me as long with movies. And it hurt so much back in college when I realized that I had to sacrifice my love of video games to pursue my film career and everything. And it's definitely really hard, because when I'm writing a script or I'm storyboarding and stuff, and I'm so focused, I kind of just drop everything. So there are so these moments where I'm tidbits and just I'm able to kind of like jump into a game is really nice. My fallbacks are usually like Pokemon. I just kind of like play it off and on, and then Sonic at the moment, that's kind of just my fallback. I play it on my Steam Deck and I just boot it up and play a couple levels and then turn it back off. Anyways, so that was very interesting to hear, Jake. So in terms of movies, recently I've seen Wicked twice, because my best friend / storyboard artist forced me to go see it with her. And then I promised my mom I'd see it. It was a good time. as a film, I have to respect it and give it the 5 stars it deserves. As a musical, the songs I've actually listened to on their own. They're great. During the movie, I really wish I could just speed along so that I could get back to the quite interesting plot. But overall, still not a fan of musicals. Besides that, Gladiator 2, wonderful film. Ridley Scott, I do believe, is just like he has the passion still and a great eye for filmmaking. And when he cares about a project, you can tell he cares about a project, I feel. I watched Gladiator 1 on Thanksgiving for the very first time, so that was very interesting. I do think that Gladiator 2 is a stronger film, but it only works because it is a sequel, and it does a great job at being a sequel because there are some payoffs in there that work so well.
If I may add to that conversation,
yeah, no, of course.
I have not seen Wicked yet because I don't want to go to a theater and hear everyone else sing those songs. I want to go and watch just the movie's song. So I'm going to wait for digital for that one. But Gladiator 2, Gladiator 1, if anyone knows me from the channel, is one of my favorite movies of all time.
Really?
It's probably top 20. It's flirted with top 10 for me, but it's probably top 20 when it shakes out at the end of the day. It's a masterpiece. I love everything about it. In my mind, there's no flaw. It's just a flawless film. Okay. Gladiator 2, I went in, obviously my expectations are through the roof. I temper it down. I'm like, I'm just got to judge it as its own movie. And I fully prepared to walk out of that movie going, okay, well, that, was a huge step down. It's a worthy sequel to Gladiator. It is awesome. It might be my favorite movie of the year so far. I don't know. I had a recency bias. I got to sit on that a little bit.
Yeah, of course.
But highlights for me, I didn't watch any trailers after the first trailer, and the first trailer kind of sucked, which with that rap in the background, "No Church in the Wild" by Kanye West, which made no sense.
Yeah, I didn't really care much about the trailer.
So I watched that trailer. I was like, I'm excited for the movie, but I don't care at all about the marketing. So I skipped all the trailers, and I'm in that theater. And highlight for me is when his mother comes to him and says that your father was Maximus Decimus Meridius. And that comes right after the scene where they were speculating, like, well, maybe Joaquin Phoenix's character was the father, whatever. And that was always the thing in the first movie. They never confirmed who that kid's parents were. It was implied partially to maybe Maximus, but there was never really a line in there because it wasn't important for the story. Well, now it's very important for the story. And that is such a... I've been waiting 24 fucking years to hear those words. I was like, yes! That was as fun for me as, like, the battle scenes in the Colosseum. I was like, yes! Gonna jump out of my chair hearing that. Like, oh! And then, of course, the unbelievable Colosseum fights, whether it's people with swords just banging them together, or it's the recreation of the ships, which, aside from the sharks, is actually pretty historically accurate. Like, they would actually do that. They'd send the ships through there and blow each other up.
I did look it up because I made a comment to my mom. I was like, pretty shocking they were able to fill that Colosseum with water in a day and then drain it the next day. And I looked it up. They did that. They did fill, and I was like, "Wait, what? Okay, cool."
Yeah, it's crazy. it's a little Hollywood embellished, but so is the first one. The gladiators in ancient Rome have sponsors, just like today, where things have sponsors, where they're supposed to come out and be like, "I am promoting this product in my name that gave me money to say this and before I fight." It's like a whole, Ridley Scott chose not to do that in his movies. So
yeah,
I totally understand. But regardless, Gladiator 1 and 2, excellent movies. Probably my favorite movie of the year, Gladiator 2 so far. But yeah. Anyway, not to hijack the conversation, I just had to chime in.
No, it's completely fine. That's part of the show. That's
tight.
Fine. Yeah, no, that part was really cool. The highlight of that movie for me was when they kill the general dude. Spoiler warning for the movie. I should probably edit this and put it in the front. Highlight of the movie for me was when the twins killed or to kill the general dude, and the whole crowd just starts rioting, and then it comes to the scene where, like, they're just storming and just rioting and stuff, because it was such a good payoff. Because in the first movie, you have Joaquin Phoenix's character, talking about the people, and everyone's talking about the people and how, like, the people are the real part of the Rome, and, like, you fear the people. And even him, he's like, I want to kill this guy, but I can't do it in front of the people. I have to stage it right. Like, he has that fear, and so you have this build up to like this whole thing, and the payoff in 2 is so good. Just to see this mass crowd, these two people that have like had all power, all control, and suddenly they're like, "Oh, you guys fucked up."
Yes.
It's so good to see.
And I love how just thematically part 2 is like a exploration of Maximus's dream before he dies in
Yeah.
Colosseum, where he's saying like this is what Rome should be in contrast to what Joaquin Phoenix's character was doing. There's just so much. Commodus, I keep forgetting his name. Commodus, what he was doing. I just love the fact that the sequel didn't just like mention that again, but actually went into what that means.
Yeah,
I was
yeah.
Like, wow.
Like-
wow.
Like, we got to see what happens when you don't, when you fuck up, when you like are just like, yeah, I'm just gonna be like an emperor and like do what I want, and I love that. So that's my little last bit. It is in my top 10 for the year. Every year I make a top 10 for the films. So I think that one's in my top 10. I don't think it's my favorite film of the year. I think I'll save that, but it's definitely going to be in there. Hopefully Sonic 3 ends up being good. Besides that, I also saw Werewolves. A great time. I don't know. Have you seen Werewolves, Jake? Or are you skipping out on it?
I have not seen it yet. If you come on the show and it's on digital, I will catch it. If you come on the show and it's not on digital, I will have to bring my ass to the theater and see it.
Okay.
Because we're gonna have to talk about the Werewolves and Wolfman conversation.
We'll save that
But
conversation
I predict,
for your show, but yeah.
Yes, but I predict that it will be on digital probably within the month. It doesn't look like it's gonna blow the doors off the box office here.
Yeah, unfortunately, but you know what? It is I do have to give. I think we can both agree that just as an indie film, this is props, because it was kind of cool to just be like, oh wow, that's great. Actually, my friend Garrett, who works at a theater, the director came to one of the showings to say hi to everyone, and I got him to let him know that I really enjoyed the film and to ask a question. I tried to ask 2 questions. I tried to ask him why he chose to be the second apocalypse instead of the first. Didn't get a chance to ask him that. But I can confirm, I wanted to know how many werewolf costumes they had to work with. Didn't get that, but I did confirm that all the werewolves are people in suits and the heads are animatronic heads. So I thought that would be a fun tidbit to share with you, which that just got me really excited to know about that. Anyways, so movies out of the way, I do believe now is a good time for a break.
Kids, come meet your new sitter. Looks like a good time to check out Burger King. Yeah! Nice costume. I'm so scared.
Universal Studios monsters are on the loose. You can get one toy and glow-in-the-dark sticker inside every Kids Club meal at Burger King.
Wow, really nice costume. Burger King Kids Club. Great food, cool stuff, kids only.
And welcome back. I think within that point, this is time to get into the main event, The Devil's League. Jake, why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about the book, how it came into creation and stuff?
Okay. Well, my elevator pitch is that it's about monsters. Basically, every type of monster I could put into one story, I did. It feels like an anthology where each story is about a different type of monster, and it takes place throughout human history. But then you get a third through the book, and you are in modern day, and there's one person who's capturing and collecting all the monsters in the previous story. So it feels like an anthology, just spirals out of control after that point. And that is just the tip of the iceberg. In terms of inspiration, it's born from me watching the classic Universal monster movies, all of them, every single Dracula, Frankenstein, Mummy, all those sequels, all those crossovers, and then through to all of the remakes, and feeling, first of all, a reverence for the classics, a reverence for the good movies when they're good, and, an understanding of the bad ones when they're bad. But just an overall level of disappointment that they have had the power to make just one movie with all of their monster characters, whom you can cast it with any actor, so you don't need to get an actor back to do it, like a lot of like other superhero movies and Marvel movies and stuff like that. You don't have to do that because they've already replaced their actors over and over again. They don't care at all. They have had the power to create a movie with their entire stable, or at least most of them, at least the heavy hitters, for a century. They were there at the dawn of cinema with freaking Dr. Jekyll and Hyde before Universal existed, right? They were there doing stuff. And what have they done? They've done a couple house movies with like 2 or 3 monsters, and they've done Van Helsing, which nobody likes. So, from my point of view, they've had the power to do something like this, and they never have. So, I've spent 100 years of cinema. I've spent our entire channel doing this Monsterthon, easily our longest running of the commentaries that we do. And it was the first one we did, and it's got the most episodes of anything. And I've been talking mad shit about Universal, saying like, "Hey guys, you can do this. Just do one freaking movie with all of them. You can do it. Whether it's the old ones or the new ones, doesn't matter." So I finally said, "Screw it. I'm gonna put my money where my mouth is. I'm gonna actually sit down and spend roughly a year and a half of my life putting the story to page, trying to create something out of nothing." Now, to be clear, before we proceed as well, this is not a fan service thing. This is not like a fan fiction. I'm not ripping them off. These are original characters. They're inspired by those characters, and if you read the stories, you'll understand where my inspirations are. They will wear their influences on their sleeve, basically, is the term. But these are original characters, and they bear very similar traits to those classics. But, you know, Dracula, Frankenstein, they're all fair use anyway, so I totally could have used them if I really wanted to. Regardless, this is a story. This is one book with separate stories that have separate plot lines featuring all of these characters individually, that as you read, the stories start to converge. Characters start to meet one another. And I'm not talking about humans talking about monsters, you know, like the Godzilla Kong movies where it's mostly just humans talking about being near monsters. Oh, wow, the monster over there sure is big. Can't wait to just spend 20 minutes talking about it. Yeah, fuck that. I'm talking about the monster characters themselves interacting with one another, whether that's cordially, whether that's via conversation, or whether that's far more deadlier to people that can't die. Or, well, they can sometimes. So, for me, this was just like kid in a candy shop. Like, I gave myself free reign. This is the story I wanted to tell. If you read the book, you know that in my mind I wanted to write like 100 of these books, but I had to contain it to one definitive story with somewhat of a conclusive ending that wrapped up the storylines by the end. It is just worth the damn money for anyone that's an actual fan of classic monsters in any respect. Or just if you like horror fiction. This is something I haven't seen before. I haven't read before. This is a unique thing. So that's my pitch.
Yeah, no, it's funny you mentioned Van Helsing because while I do think at this point it's kind of gone through a renaissance where pretty much everyone who hated it doesn't talk about it anymore, but everyone who liked it does like it. I'm gonna out you, Jake. You love Van Helsing, and I have to be honest. I had never seen it until last year. Every year, me and my friends choose a scary movie or some movie that like fits within like a Halloween-esque. And Garrett chose Van Helsing. He's like, "This is gonna be a great time" and stuff. And I was like, "Oh God," because I had heard everything about it. I had seen the final fight and stuff, and I was like, "This isn't gonna be fun." And I hated to admit it, but I had a great time, and it stuck in my head to the point where I bought it. I bought a DVD copy at a thrift store. I got the Blu-ray digital version, and I rewatched it like 2 more times, and I'm like, I hate this. I love it. I love it, and there's so many problems I have with it, but it's so fun to watch, and I'm just like, ugh, this sucks. So I do.
It's such
I have
a
to
treat.
admit,
It's such a treat.
Dude, the guy who plays Dracula in that, he's just having a blast with it. And I can't help but love it.
You can definitely feel that Stephen Sommers has such a strong passion for
He
these
does,
characters.
and he has
Like,
his own
this
idea,
is
and I
him.
can't hate him for that.
He does. He does. He made 2 Mummy movies in a row, so Universal gave him like full carte blanche, full creative control, hundreds of millions of dollars budget, whatever it was at the time. And he's like, okay, this is what I want to do. And he had like no rules. And this is just him letting loose. And you haven't seen that from him. Well, you don't really see many movies from him anymore. I don't know why.
Yeah, I don't.
But,
I can't remember the last Steven Sommers movie, to be honest.
I know, he should come back and do stuff. But like, damn, this movie is so fun. They gave him full reign. It is so fun to watch.
Yeah, admittedly, it's so weird because I think just if I'm just talking purely as a filmmaker, I think maybe having the Keys to the Kingdom is probably what made it be such a failure, because I do know that is why they kind of like pulled Universal Monsters away from Steven Soderbergh, because that movie bombed. But I think overall in the grand spectrum of things, he went out with a bang, and there is no like embarrassing thing. I mean, like, it ends, it's a clean story. There's no like cliffhanger or setup for anything. So regardless, Steven got to do what he wanted to do. It failed, but he did get to do what he wanted to do, and I do think that's great. Like, I personally, I can't speak for the man, but I do think that he did what he wanted to do with zero regrets. I'm sure there's no like, man, I wish I hadn't done this or that, knowing that. Just as a creative, the film itself perspective. Obviously, I do think maybe with a bit more restraint and stuff, it probably could have been a more successful film, but that's a whole different discussion for another time. Anyways, but the book itself, you have been asking me this question for weeks now. If I liked it, I want to say beforehand, because I do critique things, but I do want to say above all else, for the record, no matter what I say, it is an amazing achievement that you did write this book. You got it published, and you just even made it, because not even I have been able to succeed in that. I've only made 2 monster films, so you've already have a much bigger achievement than anything. So regardless of what I say, I do think this is a great work. With that said,
well, thank you.
Does this fulfill the overall monster dream that I wanted as a Universal Monster fan? There's like some things that are cool, and there's some things that I'm like, but that's also coming from a guy I mean, I've had my own ideas for things since I was like 7 years old. So it's not even fair to say. Like, it's not even fair for me to say, yeah, this book doesn't give me what I wanted, because nothing's given me what I wanted. The Stephen Sommer film Van Helsing didn't give me what I wanted. The Wolfman 2010, the older I got, it didn't give me what it's just that there's nothing's going to give me fully what I want until I make it myself. So, but as a book itself, the creativity you have in there, the world building, you have a really good knack for world building. To a detriment of me, because sometimes it's just hard for me to get. But that's just a personal thing. If I'm looking at it just as a critique, damn, you got world building, man. And interestingly enough, there is so many times where like your main core cast of characters are very strong, very interesting, to the point where I get frustrated that I can't just go back to it and just be like, I want more of this. But the parts that I do get, I love. So I do think overall it is a really good book. And it is dripping in early 2000s. Like, you can tell that you love Stephen Sommers' Mummy and Stephen Sommers' Van Helsing. And I mean this all in the goodest and most genuine, heartfelt way and loving praise. That if you are huge on like 2000s monster-esque, where like it's like very like crazy stuff happens and like you get like bloody stuff and it's like all very like hyper like action and also just like really lore heavy and stuff, the book is gonna do it for you. You're gonna love everything about it. And honestly, I was going back through my notes of all, because as I was reading it, I'd text Jake. I'd be like, okay, chapter this, here's all my thoughts on it. And as I was reading my notes, I noticed that everything that I did have like a, I don't know why you brought this up, or maybe this, most of everything that I was like, what, like maybe this wasn't needed, did fall back. Like everything like came in circles. So you did really good. Like you did well. It all had payoffs for the most part. I think everything that needed a payoff or was important came back, and I really liked that. So Yeah, no, that's
I certainly tried.
Yeah.
That's the goal when you're writing this kind of stuff, especially because like this is like 22, 23 stories, and it's kind of designed to be picked up and put down and like revisited later. So
yeah.
there are things in the second chapter that pay off in the last one. So like I totally I see how it if one weren't sitting down and I guess binging it is the modern where you just read the whole thing at once. But like I totally understand. I hope it's a fun time regardless.
Yeah. Oh no. I had a fun time, and I did have to pick it up and put it down a few times throughout the months. I had to binge it because you 100% told me I'm not allowed back on the show until I finished Radiant. So I was like, well, I guess I gotta binge this now.
Audience, to be clear, before you think I'm a cruel man, audience, let me just be clear that I broke that rule and let him on another time. So
Okay, yeah, that's fair. That's fair. But someone had to defend the Werewolves trailer, and someone had to give Wolfman it had to bring it down a notch and kind of level things. Anyways,
give it its due. Yeah.
But that's you can watch that on the Universal Monsters podcast. Great time. I've listened to most of the other episodes, I think, at this point, and they're all a fun time. If you're a Universal Monsters fan, you will enjoy Jake's podcast, and I definitely recommend giving it a listen too. So yeah. Anyways, so that's kind of just my quick thoughts on the book. At this point, I highly encourage you, please check the Amazon link down below, pick it up, give it a read. I promise you won't be disappointed, especially if you're a Monsters fan. I think you'll have a lot to enjoy. Do not go into it wanting a Universal Monsters pure experience. Go into it just wanting a monster experience, and I think you will find a lot to enjoy about it, especially about particular characters. With that said, we are going to go into spoiler talk because I have been given explicit, granted permission to discuss spoilers on the book and my thoughts on pertinent things that I think are fun. So if you have read the book, this should be an interesting time. So with that said, the very first thing, I'll give everyone a minute to pause or everything. The rest of the podcast will be spoiler filled, and this is pretty much all we're going to be discussing, me and Jake. So if at this point you wanna click off, no reason for the 5 people watching. Also for the longtime viewers who do enjoy monster stuff, I am currently in production of my next monster short film. It won't be out for a while, but keep an eye out for certain things. This is your final spoiler warning for the book The Devil's League. I repeat, this is your final spoiler warning. After this, we will go into full spoilers with no holding back. Final spoiler warning. Alright, this is it. Nothing else. Okay, here we go. With that all said, why the fuck did you kill off Waylon in such a horrible, lame-ass way? I mean, seriously, Waylon is one of the coolest guys. He is this regular-ass human, manages to collect all these things, manages to fucking collect the fucking Dark Lord of all vampires, and he goes out like a bitch? Are you fucking kidding me? He was one of my favorite characters. What the fuck, Jake?
Whoa. All right, let's get into this right now. All right, so as this book's, I guess, parental figure, where these are all my babies, right?
Yeah,
I love them all equally. I will admit that Waylon, I gave probably the most complexity and the most, going on. There's a lot to him, a lot of layers you can peel back. He's by far and away one of the most, I guess, developed characters.
And I love him.
When you get to that point, thank you. I appreciate that. Here's the thing. He had it fucking coming, all right? He, went and abducted all these fucking people from where they are and put them in his dungeon over the course of 20 years. I mean, they don't just let him live, especially not the Underlord, the guy who's never been fucking caught or kidnapped, allegedly. But like
Listen.
that's a whole thing. He kept him under UV rays for years. Like actually, Underlord was the latest one captured. before
Yeah,
Gwen, so I guess it wasn't. That
I was
long.
a little confused on that because I was like, wait, so Underlord was only captured like for a month or something, but then it also seemed like maybe it was a
in
week.
my mind.
I was
So I
confused
never
on
clarified, but in my mind it was a few months. That
Okay.
was how I wrote it. It was probably a few months.
Okay.
But obviously, as the cells went on, that's the timeline.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
Wayland's game is written that way, where it's in order. But yeah, so he was in there the least amount of time. So maybe he had the least justification to do it. Actually, Gargoyle had the least because Gargoyle was there voluntarily. But
Well,
regardless,
no, wouldn't it
there
be
are-
Gwen because she was the last one who came in, right?
Yeah, technically Gwen, yes. But regardless, Underlord has this scene where he turns Gwen into a bride. And the way it's described that he bites her throat is like sensual, passionate, very consensual, willing. And I wanted that to contrast him. I think I wrote in, tore it open like a lion, fucking spraying blood everywhere, fucking violently.
Yeah, you did.
It's
You
the
wrote
same
it.
act, but two different ways to do that, yeah.
So
that was fun for me to mirror that. But like also, A, he had it coming. B, in the epilogue, even in the end of the book before the epilogue, Hoxton directly asks the Underlord, and he's like, "You won't let him die, will you?" And he's like, "Nah." And he's like, "Good, he deserves far worse." And the Underlord is like, "I'll give him far worse. Don't you worry, Chief. We got the whole squad now. He's fucked. Don't worry." But if I were to write a sequel, he'll be there. That's all I'll say. That's all I'll say. That's it.
Look, I'm just okay. I want to preface this by saying I am angry at how Wayland goes out because I love him, because I love the character you gave. So this anger comes out as a fan of Wayland and how he is, and I'm just saying, I'm like, are you kidding me? You wrote this guy. I'm ready for this man to put up some kind of fight, be able to do something, and he goes out like that. I'm just like, oh, what the fuck? Like, this was so unsatisfying to me. I'm like, are you kidding me? My man had plans upon plans upon. I'm like, what the fuck? What the fuck? I hate
All right.
it. I fucking hate it. Okay.
Might I introduce to you, my friend, that his plans, his life goal, he achieved it?
He did. He did achieve it.
Like,
To be fair, he did achieve it.
He created the community of people like that. He watched his vision that he's been trying to create for 20 years manifest in front of him as they unite against that one common enemy. That unites them and makes them a community that doesn't prey on each other.
Yeah,
but works
he did.
together. And like, I gave him the conclusion to his story before whacking him off.
Oh yeah, no, yeah. The conclusion that one of the coolest characters in this book gets his throat bitten like a lion, and then he becomes basically, essentially, a Renfield of this story. And I'm just
Yeah.
like, I want you to know, if you ever make a sequel, I am wholeheartedly expecting the what do they call the hold on, I have the names here. The Mechi? I don't even remember
The
how.
Metro Guardians, yeah.
The Metro Guard. Is that how you pronounce it? The Metro Guardians?
The Mechimegardians.
The
yes.
Mechimegardians.
It's a word that doesn't exist.
Okay.
If you Google it with quotes, it doesn't show up with anything. I wanted to get a unique word in there.
That's amazing. Okay, cool.
But, thank you.
Yeah.
So
I-
yes, if they come back, they're relevant, of course.
And I swear, I will be so pissed if he's just like another Metro Mart. You know, I'm gonna be like, are you kidding me?
No. So no, I know what I would do. I don't
You-
mind
you don't
sharing
have to
little
s-
details because I don't know if.
You don't have to say what you do.
Well, I
It's
was just gonna
completely
say, like,
fine.
I don't know if I'm gonna have the time in my life to sit down for another year and a half, probably longer, and create the following story.
That's fair.
Because oh god, I know what I would do. I know what I want to do. I know what I want to do. So I'll just mention that little detail before I get to what I would pitch as the sequel. But for Wayland, you notice that in the epilogue, Hope was human again. We have never in the story
So she is
seen
human.
a character.
Okay. I thought
She's
she was
norm-
still a
she's just
vampire.
normal person.
I thought she was
Nope,
still a
just
vampire.
human,
Okay.
coming up with those stakes, coming up to kill the Underlord. So, where we last leave Hope before that was when Waylon and Jack broke into the hotel room, and the last scene we have is where Hope is knocked out or incapacitated in some way. And then the
Right.
following scene there is when the Underlord comes in, and he's like, "Where's Hope?" And she's just not around. But then she shows up in the epilogue as a human. In Hoxton's journal, it is a blink and you miss it detail. I put it in there very subtly to see if anybody would catch it. But in Hoxton's journal, on the section about vampires where it details about the brides, Waylon's notes write that he injected her with the same antiserum derived from Rebecca Chamberlain's notes, knowing it would outright kill her or practically heal or potentially heal her. So he didn't know what it would do, that antiserum. So it turns out the antiserum, which degraded Franklin's hand to nothing, is also something that would restore a vampire to being a human.
Okay.
So that was the implication in the book.
Interesting.
He had a theory. He tested it on her. It did work. So in a sequel, I would have somebody have studied his notes and go get Waylon, inject him, and Waylon comes back to his human senses and sees himself and sees his body in the mirror. What used to be like really muscular, it's like pale, emaciated. His hair is all falling out. He's like, "What the fuck's going? Like, what have I become?" And he goes through like a spiral as he learns to pick himself back up together.
You know,
so, yeah, I like where I left him.
Okay, you know, it's so funny because in my own fan fiction-y head, where because I do this for all sorts of stories, and for me, I was like, if I were to like write how Waylon would return to be restored, there would be someone who like breaks in and like restores him. I just didn't know how they would restore him, and that pretty much fills it in. So I'm glad that we'd be on the same page on that, because I'm like, there's so much to Waylon, and I enjoy him. I enjoy his philosophy. I enjoy reading every shot. I just love how he has plans for plans. He's not just a Van Helsing. He's one of the best, like, just original characters, or just one of the best characters of the book. He's probably up there. So
Thank you. I appreciate
that. All my hatred for that is purely out of a love for the character you wrote. And
thank you. I appreciate that a lot.
And for all the people who are listening, and you better have read the book if you're listening to this. I hope you agree, because you know exactly what I'm talking about. With the Waylon's game is one of the coolest chapters, where you just see him go through all these things, and with the Mechi, I'm just gonna call them Mechi for short.
Sure.
Or the Mechai?
The Mechi. The Mechi's totally fine.
Mechi, okay. And with the Mechi, the scene where he just like he goes up to them and he's just like, even if I capture one of you, this is gonna make a difference. And like, no. And he's like, I'll leave you alone if you leave me alone. And they're like, okay, yeah. And he just walks off. It's like such a good scene for me, because it's like there's layers, because he does want peace for these monsters, but he also realizes, like, okay, these guys aren't like vampires or anything. Like, he's not like Hoxton, so it was just so cool to see. It was like I saw it as a filmmaker, I saw it in my head. I was like, oh, this would be a perfect scene. This would be so fucking cool.
Thank you.
And yeah, next character I want to talk about, because this is another criticism, and I do have some characters that I really love, nothing but praise. So, I want you to know this isn't lambasting. Gwen, I'd like to preference this with, I don't understand why every single fucking piece of media since 2000 has been so obsessed with making the coolest fucking werewolves, and then just making them servants of vampires or Dracula, or like they just get fucking fucking neutered and shit. I don't get it. And Jake, why did you do that? You had Gwen, an awesome werewolf with this cool like secondary conscious in her. I don't know what that was, but it was cool. You had all that, and then you just you take it all away right before they fight the mummy. You didn't have the werewolf fight the mummy, okay, for all your touting of like all these guys are together. On the scene that they're all together, there's no werewolf. There's no fucking werewolf. And I'm just like, what the fuck? What the fuck's my werewolf?
Okay, all right.
You can't tell me I'm wrong on that.
To respond to what is a wonderfully passionate intro here, I gotta say, I would argue I did give you every version of a werewolf over the course of the story. So I gave you the big, huge
That
Jack
is fair.
Van Helsing ones that I love.
I don't
gave
love
you the
those,
Larry
but yeah.
Talbots with the makeup. I love, yeah. And that I gave you the Larry Talbots with the, you know, the sideburns and stuff that are kind of muscular and fast. I gave you those. And then with Gwen, I downplayed it a lot because she's more in the context of these other characters. But in the House of Imprisoner, which is a chapter that you've gone on record
I do.
saying is
I love.
perfect,
I love House of the
I
Imprisoner.
gave you classic Larry Talbot werewolf, man, and I gave everyone everything at the same time.
You
So,
did. That part was so cool,
that
and
is
then you
all
get rid of it,
before.
and I'm like, what the hell? What? Where's my werewolf? What the fuck? I just get another bride? I don't want bride. And here's my issue with that, and this might just be my own like thoughts on like werewolves and stuff, but like I always feel like werewolves have their own sort of like kind of ability to sort of see past the vampire influence. And I'm gonna say it, I sort of had gotten that sense from Gwen, simply because of her disgust for like what she'd done with eating humans and everything. I know you said with the seductiveness and the hypnotism, but I also remember, and it has been it's been a minute since I did read the book, so correct me if I'm wrong, but I also would have expected that voice in her head to be like, nah, this isn't a good idea, let's not do this, and her to kind of go with that. It seemed so out of character for Gwen to just be like, yeah, let me be a vampire who just basically essentially does the same thing that a werewolf does.
So I will say that had the Underlord not had hypnosis at all, you're absolutely right. She would never do that. She'd probably take the serum if given to her, if that was an option, because she has no other choice basically. But she wouldn't want to become a different beast that also would kill people. But she's not thinking that because she's under that like illusory spell. The only time that spell works really well is when a human is weak-minded. It's very similar to the Force, I guess. I didn't plan that when writing it, but after I wrote it, I was like, oh wow, they're basically Sith. But like the scene I always think about is the one with the creature from Black's Lagoon, where he's basically doing the Obi-Wan hand wave, where he's saying like, you will tell nobody about this creature. I will tell nobody about this creature. Like that's a weak-minded person being influenced by him. So Gwen's not weak-minded, but she's not the strongest. She's not Hoxton. So she's kind of being influenced. It's more suggestion than hypnotism. And then when she becomes a bride, she kind of uses that to, I guess, communicate with the creature and Paula. She kind of influences them to kind of put their differences aside. Which, by the way, I don't know if you caught it, and this was a late edition, but when the first two people to fight during Imprisoner was Paula and the creature, and they bash. They clash and they clash and they bash. But there's a part where the creature's chomping at her, and Paula grabs one of the artificial torches and jams it down its throat, so it like chomps up and she can kick it off of it.
Right.
That is a direct reference to both versions of Godzilla vs. Kong, whether it's the original or the new one, where
it is,
Kong
because
jams
he
a
shuts...
tree. Yep.
Oh.
Both versions have that one specific thing, and I was like, well, I have to do it. So
I didn't
not
even
that
think
they're
about
necessarily
that. That's great. No, that's cool. I didn't even
thank
think
you.
about that.
And they're not even universal monsters, but Kong is a universal monster, so I had to do it. But anyway, Gwen's whole thing with the hypnosis when she starts to wield it, I feel like she goes through 3 phases, where it's like before vampirism, she's like, I don't want to kill anybody. She becomes a vampire under hypnosis. She's like, oh, I can use these powers. Then she breaks free, and I know you don't like it, but when she becomes that thing, she's like, oh, this is awful. I'm going to break it immediately. And then we see the consequences of that.
Yeah. No.
But yeah, that's how I saw it when I was writing it.
No, that's
I
fair.
can't speak for how it is.
I think my other problem, and this is just me, I think she masters her vampire powers like way too fast. Personally, I felt like that. But again, that's just a personal thing. I do think, like, I don't know, to me it just wasn't satisfying, and it was really just kind of disappointing, because werewolves are my favorite monsters. Just to not be able to see a werewolf be in that mummy fight was kind of like, well, this fucking sucks.
Yeah.
It was just kind of
when you were
like,
reading up to it.
Yeah.
When you were getting up to it, I was like, oh man, this one specific aspect. And I was sure, I was just writing it, I was like, this is what's best for the story. I'm going to advance the narrative. I'm going to do this, this, and that. After the fact, I looked at it and I was like, everyone's in attendance except the fucking werewolf.
Yeah.
And had I written it again, like had I started over, I think I would have changed that. But at that point, what I wanted to do with the story was already in place, and I think I'd have to upend like all of that to start over, just to add in a werewolf in there.
If I'm looking at it purely from a writing perspective, which I will also say that all these critiques I had like given him, I had also like said that I could be wrong on a lot of these story beats and stuff because I have only experience with making movies and script writing. So some of the I have no idea. I used to want to be a novelist and write books and stuff, but that has long since passed. And script writing, learning how to write scripts has completely destroyed any thoughts of how to structurally write a good book. So I could just be completely wrong on this, but I do feel like narratively it did make sense to have Gwen, you know, become a vampire, and like that all made sense, and it does have a payoff. I do think that payoff could have been a bit more stronger. I think it just the vampire section of it just doesn't work as well personally, but that's just me. But as a fan, and again, just like Waylon, this is purely out of love. I loved Gwen. Your character Gwen is my favorite out of everyone. I love her as a werewolf. I think that whole turmoil and stuff that she goes through is great. And so it was just like really disappointing to not see her werewolf be able to fight the mummy. I was like, well, that sucks. So, but that was my only thing. In terms of her becoming the ultimate Frankenstein monster werewolf vampire, so I have two thoughts on this. I will first go from the is it subjective where there's no bias, or is it objective? I can't remember.
Objective is literally true. Subjective is personal taste.
Okay. Objectively, it is cool as fuck. It is a complete early 2000s. This 100% feels like something you would see in a Steven Sovereign's Universal Monster thing. And it is fucking badass. Like, this is fucking, like, oh my god, that's fucking awesome. It's a vampire werewolf Frankenstein thing, which isn't really, I don't know, but it does work. It is so fucking cool and badass, and really cool idea, and it's really awesome and stuff. So I gotta say, it worked really well. I think it paid off and kind of like worked, and I'm glad Gwen got to be that out of all of them.
Thank you.
Subjectively, not the biggest fan. I don't know. Like as a 26-year-old, I'm like, I think it's not really what I personally find interesting as like from like monsters narratively. I think like combining them is kind of like gets a little too out there in terms of things. But that's just subjective.
Yes, yeah.
That's completely a subjective.
To comment on that, to comment a little bit on that, I will say what I was trying to do with the story there is, up to this point, she has been afflicted with this physical turmoil where this thing has taken control of her. So when I flip the script and make her in control of it, all her turmoil is now mental for two big reasons. Because one, she now has the Chamberlain family's perfect recall, and everything blocked out comes forefront crystal clear. She remembers every single kill she's done. It haunts her. She sees her parents die to her own sickness that she's a part of now. It's like torturous.
Yeah,
and
that was all
one
cool.
other thing.
I like that.
Thank you. And I couple that with the one other thing, which is that the voice is gone.
Yeah,
and
I did notice
see that as of like this, the serum sees the voice as a defect, quote, quote, and just nullified it. Because that's what the serum does, and it gets rid of it. So it's another commentary on, like, what is a defect. Adam Chamberlain is, like, a big chip on his shoulder about, like, people hate defects. Why do they have to do this to people? So from that point of view, what I would do, like, following up that story, how I imagine the future of that character going is she wants her voice back. So whether she goes to the gargoyle seeking help, whatever it is, she wants to undo at least part of what she is and try and find a way to hear her voice again.
Yeah, that was something that I was like,
almost worse.
Yeah, that was something I was like, damn, not having the voice really sucked. And that was just like another personal thing where I was like, okay. And no, and again, objectively, it works, and all those themings work, and it does kind of come with a payoff where like she now kind of has this embrace, but also like all this stuff, and all that worked. It was just subjectively, I was like, I had had a great werewolf, had all this, and I really just wanted to see more of that. And I'm just like, no.
I appreciate it.
And now she's just. It did feel a little like. I feel like. I think I also feel like if this book was like 10 chapters of Gwen and 10 chapters of the house chapters, probably if there was a lot more story around Gwen, I probably would have felt more like her becoming the ultimate monster was a more of a payoff. Whereas from how I read it, personally, just how I read it again, I was just like, I don't know, this doesn't feel earned. Like, this doesn't feel like she's gone through enough of a journey. Or it's implied that she has, but I haven't seen that whole journey. I've seen parts of it, and I don't feel like the parts I saw were enough from a personal aspect.
Mm-hmm.
So
I understand that.
That's just my own thought. Though.
I will say, I never wrote that quick little flashback as part of A Bridge History of Bats and Wolves. That part where at the end of that is the last part of that is the Gwen backstory before she goes to see Waylon, where she had just killed 8 people in Toronto.
That was
Hamilton,
awesome,
Ontario,
by
sorry.
the way. So fucking cool.
Thank you. It was a little tidbit. I had not written that when writing the house stories, and I was like, I like her in this context. I like her as the house story main character here, but I want a little bit more of her. I want to go back and just set up her a little bit.
Yeah.
So I went back and I made that part of that collection there, and I think it really improved.
Again, that's why I say I'm like, man, I wish I had 10 more chapters of Gwen just doing, because that was so fucking cool. Like, again, I saw it in my head as a movie, and I was like, oh, this is awesome. This is like I don't care if she's a Van Helsing type werewolf. I don't care. I'm getting what I want, and I'm seeing what I want, and I fucking love it.
Fair enough. That's awesome. That's glad to hear. But yeah, so I kind of, the way I saw it is like I'm starting her off as the typical Larry Talbot, but updated for modern day. So I'm starting off, if you're the biggest fan ever of the Larry Talbot character, you're gonna like it going in. And the first half, maybe 2/3 of the book is tailored to you.
Yeah,
and then we make
100%.
those creative changes down the line. So yeah.
And for the record,
one could say, yeah.
And for the record, again, objectively, those changes are really cool. They're really awesome. Objectively, I'm like, yeah, this stuff is fucking awesome. I love it.
Well, it also
it's just
stemmed from something that I. Well, yeah, go on.
Oh no, I was just gonna say, just from a subjective point of view, I was like disappointed. But again, that completely, like Waylon, it comes off from a love of this character that you have written, and the chapters that I read before, completely just from a love.
I will say, before I ever wrote the story of any of them at all, going into the book, I was like, if I'm gonna do a hybrid monster, we've seen vampire werewolf hybrids a lot in media. We've seen the Underworld movies just kind of be about that. But I've never seen Universal's big 3 all as one, and that's vampire, werewolf, Frankenstein's monster. And my version of the Frankenstein monster was not Frankenstein at all. It was just an original character, but stem cells, artificial life, blah 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 blah. So but putting them all together in Hoxton's entry on Gwen in the journal, which is one of the last entry. I think it is the last entry in the journal.
Yeah, no, it is the last entry.
Which implies that he took his journal back and got the fuck out of there. He speculates that each of the traits of the monsters counteract each other's weaknesses. I wrote that in to be his speculation of her, but in no way is she infallible. She's just incredibly strong, incredibly powerful, and I really like the epilogue, her section of the epilogue where the undead feed on the living, Gwen feeds on the undead.
Yeah, that
so
was
she
cool.
has her own, like, that's her food source. She hunts the predators, which is, I haven't really seen much of that in media. So.
No, I like that, and I 100% like that. That was cool. I love how in Oxton's journal it says like she is dangerous at all costs. I was like, oh shit, okay.
If
cool.
there's any way to kill her,
yeah, take it priority. I was like, okay, wow. All right.
It's funny. There was a scrapped epilogue. I had written at least most of it until I realized this is not really the direction I want to go. But I had it so that it was similar to the end where she captures the vampire, but I had it so that Hoxton was hunting that vampire. She swoops in and eats the vampire, and she and Hoxton have a conversation where she takes his journal and she reads that paragraph where it's like, wow, the most dangerous thing in the world, huh? Gotta kill me at all costs, huh? And basically that conversation evolves into like them agreeing that they need to take down the Devil's League. So they're gonna unite what forces they have to do that. But I felt like that was a little sequel baity, and I was like, I'd rather it be more conclusionary, and just if I get to that, I'll get to that one day. But her and Hoxton have a similar goal in regards to specifically the Underlord. She really wants vengeance on the Underlord, which is a whole can of worms. But Hoxton, obviously, the end of the book set him down this path, this character arc where he's like self-reflecting, and you see that when he sees Marie again at the end. And that's a whole other thing. But I just want to mention it because I had a version of that epilogue which would lead into more things, and I didn't really want to go down that road.
Personally, I think it would have been so cool to have the Hoxton thing. I think I would have just cut out, I think it would have worked, just cut out that we need to take out the Devil's League. And I think that would have been perfect. Because I would have loved to see her and Hoxton talk. Because, again, that's just the interaction I want to see. So, yeah. On that note, I think that perfectly segues into two things. One, because this has just been bothering me the whole time. Rebecca Chamberlain's serum and everything. I mean, is Adam meant to be the Frankenstein? I mean, I guess he is, but it was like, I gotta say, you went so original, and this isn't a critique. You went so original that I don't even feel like it is a Frankenstein thing in my eyes. Like, did you? And were you okay with that, or did you always kind of intend for there to still be a Frankenstein aspect to it?
So, I had originally envisioned a more closer to Frankenstein Mary Shelley monster, and it was going to be a sequel to the Ape Woman story, where Dr. Sigmund goes to London, where his original research on bringing these parts of people together and merging them was based on a book written and very quickly pulled from shelves, written by a character who was an analog for the Frankenstein character.
Oh, okay.
And they would have a conversation where it's like, oh, Sigmund pulled it off, whereas Frankenstein's creation was a misfire, an abomination, and he's like, oh, pull my book, I'm fucked up, I don't want anyone to hear this research ever. But Sigmund's like got one of the only copies and realized it to fruition. So Paula and Frankenstein's creation, which would be like a horribly hideous, disfigured man creature thing, they would have like a romance and they would start their thing.
Oh, okay.
I envisioned that, and I was like, that's cool, but that's still, I've seen so many adaptations of Frankenstein, and like, I don't know what more I could add to it. That would be my take if I were to do it, but I decided, you know what, screw it. This book is original anyway. Let's go full original. Keep the spirit of Frankenstein. Keep the spirit of what Mary Shelley was trying to do, but just put my own spin on it and make my own freaking character in there. And I put a lot of tribute to Frankenstein in there because I called the first one Adam and the next one Franklin. So,
yeah,
and of course the mother is named Elsa, which was the name of both the character and the actress who played her. So
yeah,
I kind of put my spin on there, and I made that happen. Funny enough, I didn't intend the bride to be a one-off character, but I thought her death narratively fit the story I was telling, so it turned out that way. And she has an impact on Franklin's decisions later on anyway, but like,
Elsa's death
ideally
works.
I would, yeah.
I do think that her being introduced as dead kind of harmed it in my opinion, because I was like, okay, well, she's already dead, and I had like no idea who she was, and so I was like, okay, and then I get to know who she was, and I'm like, why the fuck wasn't this started with? Like, Jake, what the hell?
Well, it's funny, I had written well, mind you, the story that you're referring to where she's introduced as dead is the Frankenstein Dracula Wolfman crossover story that like I had to do at least one. Right,
oh yeah, I guess it is. I didn't even think about that.
I had to do that before we even get to the house stories. I had to do one big thing with all three of them, just at least to set the tone, to set the table a little bit, and it has a lasting impact on all three of their characters going forward. Not the Wolfman; it's a different character, but like mostly Adam and his son, mostly the Underlord. And in doing so, I wrote in that wife being dead as like vengeance for what happened to him. And when finishing that story, I was like, damn, I kind of felt like you did. I was like, well, I kind of wish I'd seen her ahead of time. But I liked the reveal that one existed. So I was like, you know what? The next story in the book is going to be all about her. It's going to be their entire journey from meeting to marriage to death to after her death to second death to follow up and concluding Adam's arc with his mother.
Yeah.
So Adam is one of the first monsters to, I think he is the only monster to conclude his complete character arc before you even get to the house stories.
Yeah, I
So
would
he
say
gets
so.
there, he's all set, and that's one of the reasons that and we're in spoilers, one of the reasons I had him be one of the ones to die in the final fight, because I felt like his story is told, it's about his son now, and I want to see what his son would do with that now that that's happening.
Yeah, and again, I know nothing about writing a book, so for all I know, I could be completely wrong with the whole Elsa's kind of like the thing. So, but I definitely understand what you mean. So I'll chalk it up to personal preference.
Well, you do have a point there. I mean, like, I knew when I was writing it, I was like, this is a risk. Like, yeah, I should, quote, should tell you who the character is and their stuff before killing them. That's, like, what you're supposed to do. And I do that with the rest of the characters if I'm going to kill them. But I want to take a little bit of a swing there because I like the reveal so much.
It was a swing, and I always...
that
I always applaud swings, so I won't give you for that. But I will say that out of all the swings, I was kind of like, well, that sucks. But that again, that's fine. But yeah, I do think Adams and Franklin are interesting characters. I think overall they were a little, I don't know. They definitely weren't my favorite, but not for the fact like, oh, these aren't Frankenstein. It's just I was like, okay, well they're kind of cool, but I think there was more interesting ones personally. With that said, again, good segue. Hoxton was probably the surprising character that I grew to love. When he was first introduced, I was like, okay, this chapter is good. Because I do believe, if I pull up my notes here, what did I...
You did have a lot to say about the Hoxton chapter.
Yeah, I put Hoxton had too much. Personally, I think the first two parts needed to be cut out, and it should have started with him in the boxing ring. That's when it got interesting, and I was compelled to keep reading. Flashbacks of the scene of abandoning his sister is all we would need for context, and as for the witches, gift, it could be brought up later in the story, assuming he comes back, which would have compelled me to keep wanting to know why Hoxton suddenly stopped being in pain. Mystery is what's lacking here, to be honest. But unless the sister comes back, there's not much reason to have her have any spotlight in the story. Hell, witches should absolutely have been thrown out since she dies immediately in this chapter. The witches are not as much of an outlier after everything else that happens. There's so many other crazy things where I'm like, okay, yeah, I can believe this whole witch spell thing now. So looking back, I take that out, and again, it was like at that moment I was like, okay, he's the Brute Man, I get it. I'm like, all right, this is an interesting take on the Brute Man. I still don't care that much. And then he comes back in the chapters, and the more I got to learn about Hoxton, the more interesting I found him, especially as a foil to Wayland. And I grew to love him. I grew to be like, man, Hoxton is a fucking badass character. And I think part of it was that I could feel how much, I could be wrong, but I could feel how much passion he had for the Brute Man character and for Hoxton. And I think out of everyone, I could be wrong again. I feel like Hoxton is your favorite character because he has so much going on with him, and he has so much character and interesting beats and stuff, and his whole thing where like his morality kind of gets challenged at points, and the beatdown he gives to Sigmund's to Dr. Sigmund's creations is so fucking cool. Yep. I'm like, damn, hell yeah, let's go. And everything else, I'm like, yeah, no, Hoxton I grew to love, and that's probably the character that was written very well. I really liked Hoxton by the end of it. That he was my surprise favorite of them all.
Thank you. Well, going into him, to comment on that and kind of expand on it a little bit, I wrote Hoxton because if you're writing a book and it's about Universal monsters and you look at the Brute Man movies, it's just a dude, right?
Yeah,
there's
it's
nothing
just a
really
dude.
like monsterish about him. But I saw it as like the fact that they take this man with this medical condition who's of acromegaly, which killed him at 50 because that's what happens to you if you don't get it treated.
Yeah.
They took this guy who has this horrible like condition that's affecting him and it's gonna kill him, and Universal was just like, put him in pictures. He looks ugly. Now he's a monster, and they made 3 of him like in a row. And I'm like, whoa, that's so insensitive. So I kind of wrote Hoxton. I wrote those feelings I had for Rondo Hatton, the real person, into Hoxton, and I kind of made that literal. I made that part of the story that he's always in pain because of his affliction and he's stuck this way, and him being relieved of that pain through by way of magic was like, oh my god, like he's already a very religious character, but he could only interpret that as like divine intervention. So obviously later on he finds his path, and I really enjoyed writing it of like the Christian angle of like, you look at like, you know, Christianity, they spout like, you know, peace and love your neighbor, but they also did the Crusades, so like, you know, they're not the nicest all the time, like so I kind of saw Hoxton as like that modern day version like of a zealot who's like completely heretical on everything he believes and like monsters must die. Obviously where it gets really interesting with him is because he knows that he himself is a monster. So I think he has a line in there with the Underlord. I don't know if I kept it in the book or if I.
You did. He says specifically, when this is all over, I will find a way to kill myself. And I think he tells it to the gargoyle, or he tells it to someone. But he is 100% like all monsters must die, including me.
Mm-hmm. And what sets him off, like the first detail to challenge his morality a little bit, is and it's just like a real quick conversation. It's only a few lines, but it's Adam and Hoxton at the Gargoyle's doorless castle when Hoxton kind of says like a comment about like his son, like, oh, it's a shame he's always going to be stuck your monstrous way. And Adam just sits there and uses his perfect recall to piece together every conversation Waylon and Hoxton have ever had and piece together Hoxton's entire life story in seconds, and then tells Hoxton what your sister did for you was a gift to let you live your own life. And Hoxton's like blindsided, like, holy shit, nobody even fucking knows about that. So just that, like, that challenging idea where it's like, yeah, you were killing all these monsters because she let you do that. She gave that to you. And that's a lesson that Adam himself learned when he realized that his mother gave him that opportunity by way of science instead of magic to live his own life. So I really enjoyed that a lot.
And I think it's interesting, that scene, because I do wish... I did want to see, like, the gargoyle kind of challenge Hoxton's morality on all this and everything. But I did like that he kind of gets questioned with that. Because there is that... I think the biggest part is when... I can't remember who tells him in that chapter, but someone's like, yeah, the world's going to end, and with all Hoxton's thing about monsters and everything, and his first thing is, yeah, I'm just gonna hide in Brooklyn in my apartment. It's like, wow. It's like the first time where Hoxton really has to be like, shit, okay.
I'm gonna get the fuck out of here.
Yeah, no, and I don't know. I think again, it's like Hoxton, he's immortal. He can't be hurt, but like again, and. I never questioned that. I never had a problem with that because I was able, that first chapter where he's introduced, I was like, yeah, okay, he went through all this stuff. Like, he earned that kind of, like, ability. And he still isn't fully, like, just completely, like, just, like he has to struggle to still take down things. He does eventually get the upper hand, but he still has to put in a fight, and I love that. So, yeah, Hoxton's a badass. Love him. You made me care about the brute man. That was he's not he's amazing, and I applaud you. He is the best.
Thank you.
Probably the best written character overall the entire course of the book.
Well, thank you. That actually means a lot to me. Thank you.
Yeah, no, 100%. With that said, another slight gripe was I got so fucking tired of reading the one who. I was like, dear God, if I have to read the one who one more time, I'm going to throw this book through a window.
You are the one who reads.
Yeah, the one who reads.
One chapter. All right, it's only one chapter. All right, it's just that chapter, and it was a chapter that I almost didn't put in the book. My editor said you got to keep it, and then I told you that, and you said I had to keep it. So in your face.
Yeah, no, the chapter's great. I just got tired. You better tell me when you were writing that you just copy pasted the One Who. Please tell me it was just Control V every time you had to write that, and then it was, or did you actually type out the One Who every time?
So, yes, but not how you think. I had to copy just One Who because sometimes the is or isn't capital.
Oh,
so
that's
I couldn't
true.
just keep it every single time.
All right. Yeah.
But at that point, it's only technically 8 characters if you include the 2 spaces in there. So I'm not really saving that much time by copying and pasting.
Well, I don't even care. If I was writing a script, I'd be like, oh, this is so fucking tedious. I would have just found it super tedious.
Those are their names. Those are what they're called.
They're badass names. For the record, they're really cool names. I think that was cool. But by the end I was like, oh my god. And I do think all those creatures are very cool. I love that, like, you did your own take on the Island of Lost Souls and Dr. Monroe and everything in Sigmund. Crazy that he goes that far, and some of those poor guys, like that poor doctor or the explorer dude. Like, I was like, damn, that really fucking sucks. That said, the very first segment of that, I was like, I still hold true to that first segment with the shipwreck guy needed to be slashed. I didn't need it. We could have started out with the other thing, and I did have to go back and I did have to go back and read, and I was like, I didn't realize at first that Paula was the queen of them all. So I did have to kind of go back and wait. I'm like, oh wait, is this Paula? And so I do think name dropping her then would have worked better than a little bit later in the chapter, because I did get confused there, but that could also just be me because ADHD brain.
Fair enough. I liked how I didn't make it clear for the longest time, because once you know that Dr. Sigmund's on the island, it's like, well, who else would be the queen of his island, you know?
That's fair. Okay, that's true.
One. But yeah, no, I really enjoyed writing that. That's why I felt like I should cut it, because I enjoyed it so much. And I mentioned this to you, but it's really just development for Paula and Hoxton in a way. It's a big step for Hoxton, obviously, because for me, with the Hoxton character, who you named up as your favorite character, the way I read it is this. He's very conflicted. He's got a lot of emotional tension going on. He pursues relentlessly his job, and at times you even feel sympathetic for Hoxton. This is an example of why Hoxton hates himself to an extent. This is why this is my purpose. This is God's plan for me. I gotta kill all these people. So I liked showing that instead of just telling parts of it. Even though other parts of the Devil's League does tell instead of show, because I don't have 100 stories. I only have 23.
Yeah. But no,
yeah.
I do think it was a necessary chapter for both Paula and Hoxton, because we haven't seen Paula since that very first chapter, and I needed to see. I wanted to see what happened to Paula. And it was good to see that and be like, all right, cool, I understand. I see what's been taken from her, and all this. And again, just purely from just a fan of action and everything, that Hoxton just fucking annihilating all of them was so cool after everything else. I was like, yeah, this is badass. I need to see this. This made me, this cemented my enjoyment of Hoxton. It was a payoff from everything else, and him saying he's been hunting all these guys, and just being able to see him take down all these creatures was so cool. So, and there was enough of a build up to the creatures where I was like, okay, yeah, this works. It was where I thought it was cool, and I was also like, this also really sucks, because they're just peaceful, innocent things.
So that's
that
the
again,
exact feeling I wanted to convey.
Yeah.
I wanted you to get a sense of, wow, this is so fun to read. It's awesome action. Wow, this is such horrible things that he's actually doing.
No,
I
again,
wanted to juggle those two emotions.
And it works also so well, because it strengthens Waylon's chapter where we do see him hunt down everything. Because again, with the Mechi, it strengthens that, where Hoxton would have still annihilated that town regardless. But Waylon sees it and goes, "There's no reason to. They're fine." And I think that was so great as a good dichotomy. Waylon and Hoxton have such a foil to each other that I love, and I think without the Sigmund chapter, Waylon's game would have been the weaker for it. It still would have been good, but I think it was just the extra thing that made me see like, oh, this is the difference between Hoxton and Waylon. This is what makes Waylon not just some guy collecting people, and I like that.
Well, it's funny. I had written Waylon's game before I wrote Sigmund's.
Okay.
What the hell? Yeah, Sigma. I think it's just called Sigma. But I wrote that chapter first. Where that becomes interesting is that Waylon's game is still, I think, the longest chapter in the book. So at that point, it was even longer, and I had to start cutting things. But I didn't. Everything was so essential. So I said, you know what? If I'm gonna write the Sigma chapter, I can just take Waylon meeting Paula out of Waylon's game and put that as the end of Sigma, and have him be the last guy that comes to the island.
Yeah, that
so
worked.
I extracted that from Waylon's game, and I put that as the end, and I think it works way better that way.
Oh yeah, 100% works way better, because having that chapter end on Waylon giving up on the Mechi just said a lot to his character, especially after everything else had happened. It made me be like, I don't just see this guy as having his own thing. It made me see an extra layer to him. Whether that was intentional or not, I don't see Waylon as just this asshole who ripped all these people from their lives. I do see him as someone who has good intentions, but he might be going around this not exactly the right way and stuff. Like, he's not going
exactly,
around this the right
and
way.
like, yeah, absolutely. And they're actually the Mechi. It's interesting you say they're barely in the book. They're mostly just in Waylon's game. But they have two stories in Waylon's game. One where we set up what they are, and then the last story in the book.
Yeah.
I had a second one. I had a second segment where that was like, it would make like a 1, 2, 3 story arc. But again, Waylon's game was so long I had to cut it. But basically, it was like a small town, like a small little gas station on like an obscure little town. And Waylon and Jack would walk in, and I would set up like more racial tensions in the town that like visually would not be there. You know, like this should be a town where like people would be getting arrested or pulled over for their skin color, but like that's not happening, and that's like strange to him. So he walks in this little town, walks in this little like corner store gas station shop where everyone's like really normal and no one's acting like humans. And this like old little lady is sitting at the counter like, "How can I help you?" And Waylon's like, "Yeah, I had a question about this product." And it's like this like pen or something like that. He's like, he puts it on the counter and he's like, "I think I need your help with it." And the old lady's like, "What's going on?" He's like, "Oh, well, there's a problem with the top part here." And she leans in, and he takes her head and just bashes the old lady through it, like Joker in The Dark Knight, and she sprawls out into like the alien, the tentacles, and the whole fucking thing. And they have a big thing,
cool.
and basically, and he tracks down that specific Mechi. But then when he runs out of the corner store, he sees what he can't be sure are humans or not looking at him, chasing, and it morphs into this like skinny, frail little kid basically running away from him. And Waylon's like, I can't just start shooting this guy in the middle of the public. I'll get arrested and go to jail forever. So like, obviously I have to call off the chase. I really like that story, but like, if I had to cut something from Waylon's game, it's not about one of the monsters in the house story. I had to get rid of it, but it was fun.
That's fair. That would have been a really cool chapter to read though, or a story bit to read. Regarding the Mechi, because I am curious about this, I'm gonna say my speculations first, just because I need the ego boost if I get this right. It feels like they're inspired by Invasion of the Body Snatchers and The Thing. John Carpenter's The Thing. But I do want to know what was the inspiration behind that? Like, what made you like decide to add them into the book and everything? Like what's the story behind the Mechi? Because I found it so interesting that you added this completely extra thing that I liked.
Well,
I have no problems with, but I'm so curious about it.
Thank you. You're absolutely right. It is a pod people situation. It's loosely inspired by them, who aren't even universal monsters. I wanted one kind of wild card in there. I think I ended up with like 5 wild cards in there. But like, I wanted one kind of like story to like keep you on your toes a little bit, because like if you're a Universal Monster fan, you're expecting the stable, the usual characters, and at this point, you're also expecting the obscure boys like Paula or Hoxton and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I wanted to throw a little bit of a curveball in there. I wrote. How do I put this? this is an original alien because the pod people technically has nothing to do with the physiology of the Mesmer Guardians. They are tentacly, like a mess of tentacles. There's no center point. There's just a bunch of tentacles coming out, and they're all red, and they're all like in a room. It would like they could touch every wall. They're like moving so fast, and they're huge and strong and stuff. But when they wrap up in a certain configuration, the tentacles can have a shape of a person and then cloak to look like the color of like hair, clothes, skin.
Okay.
And they can like furl together and look like a person. So that's what they do. I did make it clear that they're not aliens, but they're very alien-y. I kind of just see this as like there's more to the world than you know, because between 2 and 3% of your population, I kind of wrote that like literally the intent is of people.
Yeah.
But in Hoxton's journal, I have a little section on Mechie where he circled it. It's 2 to 3% of all life, not people, are Mechie. So all life on Earth, it's a very small fraction. And I had some cut dialogue because, again, they weren't super relevant to the story, so I didn't go too far into it. But basically, I had some cut dialogue where another character speculates, well, why don't they take over the world? Why don't they take over politicians? Why don't they, like, run the show? And they're like, well, they're too smart to try to do that, because as soon as you start doing that, normal people are going to catch on, and then it's the same thing as the Underlord is like scared of like the monsters being discovered. It's that kind of mentality where it's like the reason they've been around since humans have been around, just like forever, is because they've kept such a low profile and blended in and never gotten too ambitious with their goals. However, and I just have to mention it because we're talking about the Mechie, in the epilogue, fucking Officer Blake shows up at the door of the mansion that now is owned by the Underlord. And, I had a few ideas of what I would do with that scene. Were I writing a sequel where they're like, oh, would Lillian become a Mechie right away? Is that like a thing that's going to happen? I think, and this is just me speculating on what the story is in my mind, I think it's just Officer Carrie Blake coming over to see, like, Waylon is so interesting of a person to have hunted him down all the way there, because nobody's ever hunted him down all the way there before. Like, that's a big deal. What kind of person is Waylon? And then Mechie comes in. What would the Mechie do about the Devil's League existing as a unit in that house? Like, what? Like, there's so many storytelling possibilities with that.
I will say, just like in my own like fan interpretation, I kind of like saw it as Officer Blake comes. I was like, oh, that's so cool. I liked that it did end with Officer Blake like saying, hey, what's up? Because in my head, I'm like, I think personally what he would do is like he sees what happens to Wayland and like kind of like observes this, and as like kind of like a almost like a gesture of like him like being like, I won't like what he did back then, he kind of like helps Waylon kind of escape thing. Like that's just my own personal kind of thing that I would do with it. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe that's a little too fan fiction-y, but I definitely would have been like,
no, that
if I was writing the scene,
cool.
I'd have him kind of like look through, be introduced to all this, and then he sees Waylon and he remembers back to when Waylon offered him peace and is like, all right, and maybe he like sees the serum, like you were saying with the anti-serum. He's like, inject. Waylon comes back and he helps him get out of there, or something like that. I think that'd be an interesting way to kind of do it.
That would be really cool thematically, because the Mechie, like you're saying, are the one monster that Waylon didn't capture.
Exactly.
So he's like, so of course that's the one individual, the entity that comes and breaks Waylon out of that Renfield-like state and kind of starts restoring him to. Oh man, ooh, I gotta say, that wasn't in my mind, but now it is.
Okay, I'm glad I put it in your mind. Okay, that's good. I'm glad you like you heard that. And you're like, oh, that's cool.
Well, because again, I'm like, idea of like, yeah, no, you're absolutely right.
As a Waylon fanboy, I'm like, okay, how would I do this?
Well, one of the early ideas I had for at least the start of a sequel would be, obviously the Devil's League learns that the Mechie exist. And the Mechie pose a threat. I don't know how yet, but they do. And so the Devil's League need to prep themselves. They need some person who knows the most about the monsters now that Waylon is Renfield. Maybe they already captured Waylon at that point. Well, who do they go to? But they hunt Hoxton down, and they're like, hey, we need your help. You're the only one who knows how to violently murder hundreds of different types of monsters. This is a new type of monster. You have it cataloged in your journal. We need to know what you know about it, and we need to act as if you would. And
Yeah.
you know, there's a lot of cool stuff you could do with that. That sounds really fun.
No, there is a lot. Also, on a note, and this goes back again to I don't understand why werewolves are like the fucking kicking horse these days. In your journal, the most kills of monsters Hoxton has gotten is fucking werewolves. And I'm just like, goddamn,
Yep.
why do people
Yep.
like fucking like? Okay, it's cool that Hoxton is taken down. Like I think it said like fucking. Hold on, I have the book right here. Let me.
I have the book. I'm going to the book too. I forget how many tallies, but it was a lot.
Came to like 50 or something like that. I was like, Jesus Christ. Badass, mind you. Really badass. But also like, oh my god, the hate for werewolves is strong. Yeah,
So,
hold on. 5,
when I
10,
wrote the
15,
book-
20, 25, 30, 35. Yeah. 6, 37, 38 werewolves. Goddamn, man. Can't tell
man.
me
You
you
know
don't
what's
like,
funny, too, is, like-
tell me you think werewolves are like the lowest priority or like the least coolest to you without telling me werewolves are the least coolest to you.
Well, it sounds like they're the highest priority for fucking Hoxton, apparently. So, but no, I will say, when writing the book, I wanted vampires and werewolves to be the two biggest. I'm looking at it now. I think I didn't put the tally layer on the vampires sheet, so I would now. There's nothing there. It just says killed blank. So
okay.
I think I would write that into a fix into the sequel. I'd have a line where it's like, "Oh, you didn't kill any vampires," and he's like, "I erased it so I could write more," or something like that. I could figure that out.
Wait, hold on. Canon here, how many vampires has Hoxton killed?
Well, you see him kill at least one in the prologue, so it's
Oh, for
not
the love
zero.
of God.
So that number's not accurate no matter what. But look, he killed that many werewolves as he wrote down, which is like what, 27? I don't fucking know.
No, 37. 37 werewolves.
37.
He almost hit 40. He almost fucking hit
Look,
40.
this guy has been alive since like colonial times. This guy's been alive for hundreds of years. It's not like he did this all in a weekend. This would be
Look,
insane.
if you
numbers.
tell me that Hoxton killed 27 vampires, I will take back my thing that you hate werewolves. That you have a
All right. He probably killed as many, if not more, vampires. All right.
Okay,
He
that's
probably killed
fine.
just as many.
I don't need him to kill more vampires. I just need to know that werewolves in your universe are not the canon fodder of this fucking universe. Okay, I just need to know that.
Of course not.
Okay,
They're
then
not
we're
cannon
good.
fodder,
We're
but
square.
There is a long history of the Underlord controlling them and breeding them, and like, you know, fashioning their traits down like humans did with dogs, right? Where they create chihuahuas and shit. They
Yeah,
created
which
Larry Talbot-esque werewolves from Van Helsing-esque werewolves and shrunk them down.
objectively it makes sense. Just as a subjective person, I've never really enjoyed when stories do that. But again, that's just a personal preference. Just I'm not gonna like say like, oh, this is horrible, because again, that's just my own interpretation, so I can't speak
Right?
on
Yeah.
that.
No problem.
But that's just again a lot of critiques. If I look back on it, a lot of critiques, and I told you this before, really just have to do with you made really cool characters, and I'm just like, I want more of that. Now, those were like, I think, my biggest critiques, and I feel like if anything, those are the best critiques to have, because you want
Thank
your
you.
reader or your viewer or anything, the person consuming your media, to want more from that. You want, as a creator myself, I think the biggest thing that I want to hear is that someone is like, I liked this, I want more of that, because it means that you did something right.
Thank you. I
It means that
appreciate
you
that.
kept
And
them
like,
wanting.
I certainly hope so. When I was writing the book too, I kind of realized that like all the house stories together, you can pluck them out and make like a novella of just that house
Yeah.
movie you want. And if I were to make a sequel, I don't know what I would do with follow-ups. I don't know if I'd do more prequels, more short story collections. I know what I would want to do though at some point, whether it's the first thing I do or down the line or at the end. I want a trilogy sequel. So like if this is The Hobbit, I want to make Lord of the Rings. I want to do all
Okay.
modern day, all linear, all house, all the monsters, all the characters, and it's just following up from the events, and it's their ultimate conclusion. And I would take a lot of inspiration from what Tolkien did, and like kind of treat this as like the stepping stone and move up, basically.
Personally, I say go for it, because you have so much world built and lore on this that I think there's enough, and I say go for it. And I'm just saying, maybe talk to a certain Xander of Emerald Cool Studios and let him give you your idea. You don't necessarily have to go with the ideas, but just let him like say, make suggestion. I'm not, I'm just saying, like, but no. Regardless, I do.
No,
think
definitely
you should
not.
write the rest. I think you should do the rest of the trilogy.
Thank you. And if I do make a sequel, I will have a more traditional werewolf character in there, whether that's Gwen going back or someone else entirely. I got to represent for the homies, man.
No, that's great. I think the final thing is that all the house chapters are absolutely the best parts of the book, and just perfect. If the book was literally just the house chapters, 10 out of 10. I love it. It's just no issue. I think I can even, if I look back at everything, every single house chapter, I'm like, this is amazing. I love it. And again, I think it was which one did you say it was? Is my favorite? It was House of the Imprisoner. Yeah, House of the Imprisoner blew me away. I was like, oh, this is it, baby. We're here.
I knew when writing it. It's really funny. I had initially written Imprisoner so that it would end with all of the gateways opening, and the next house would be that scene. And I was like, no way. I gotta put it here. I gotta put it now. And
this worked.
It literally goes on for 3 full pages. That chaos. And I was like, I would never put this in a story just willingly, like just for no reason. But it's so late in the book. It's so, in my opinion, it's earned. Like, you've been with all these characters.
Earned.
You know why they're all there. You know what they all want. And you know they're all fucking pissed.
Yeah.
So it was really satisfying for me to write.
Yeah, and I think the final character I want to touch on is the God King, the mummy. This guy was so cool. The Vikings, it worked. The payoff worked with coming them back. I liked how it came back to the Wiki's lighthouse and stuff. I liked all that. Still don't give a fuck about the Vikings. I'm sorry. I just don't care. The God King, on the other hand, wow, this guy was cool. He pops in. I do think he could have popped in earlier, and then we have him come back. But overall, just the concept of him, everything, I was like, man, this guy is fucking awesome. I loved him. I thought it was so cool how he wakes up, finds out that he's not actually a god, and is like, fuck it, apocalypse. And he has my favorite moment in the book. My favorite line, my favorite paragraph, my favorite sentence that will be burned in my head, and that I need. I told you this before, and I'm saying I need first rights to the film. I need film rights to this, because I need to make this a scene. I need to film it when he goes back into the astral plane and he's with the Phantom, and the Phantom's like, "What the fuck are you doing? You're gonna die. There's nothing left." And he just sits there in silence, and then he just says, "I don't want to die again."
Oh.
Jake, it was beautiful. It was just like this.
Thank you.
Oh, it just. I literally, I got chills. I was like, holy fuck. I was like,
thank you. Thank you so much. I knew when I wrote the Greatest Game 1 and 2, I wrote those chapters, the conclusionary chapters, and originally that wasn't there. There wasn't an astral plane. And I was like, this is fun, satisfying action, but I need more character from the mummy. Like, he was great established in that first Viking story, but I need that to pay off in a stronger way. So I went to the Greatest Game Part 1, and I wrote in that he pulls the Phantom into the astral plane and is just like, all right, if you and I work together, we can kind of solve this, as a pretext. So when that he dies, he pulls him in as his final act. The last thing he can do is pull him into the astral plane and just talk.
Yeah. And
That's it.
And you know, it made me accept the astral plane. It made me be fine with the whole wizard thing and the magic stuff. It made me be like, oh, this works. It made it work for me because it was like the magic and all that. I was just like, and the astral plane, I was like, and then you know, him talking to the fan, I was like, okay, that's cool. I like that. That was a smart thing. But him going in the astral plane, and you know, he's done all this stuff. He has all this power, but I get this one sentence of humanity from him that is pure like, this is what I want from a Universal Monster thing. This is what I need to see. This is what I want from a mummy, from just a character. And just to see him just go, I don't want to die again, and just completely shed all his pretenses was so good. And the Phantom just kind of going like quietly, and then just having them talk, and just for a paragraph, it worked. It solidified. Like, it was like the mummy was cool and interesting, but then I saw that, I was like, wow, God King is, wow. he's not just the villain of the week. He has humanity to him, and I think that's always needed.
Thank you. I really
with any
appreciate
monster.
that.
Oh yeah, no.
Thank you.
Like I said, I need the film rights to this book because I need to make that scene a reality.
Well, the only issue, and I don't see it as an issue at all, because for the book it works. First of all, very kind words. Thank you. It's high praise. The only issue I have with the ending that way is that because of the epilogue, I now can't bring him back for a sequel because
that is true.
Next time he wakes up is 3,000 years or 1,000 years later in 3024 AD. So, in a sequel I would have to introduce a new mummy because I can't not have a mummy.
You
so,
know,
I know how to do that. I know what I would do.
You know, if you did want to bring God King back, there is one way you could do it. It could be that there is some group that finds a way to bring him back, and by some weird kind of like thing is that he just kind of like doesn't retain the memories of it because of whatever the curse or whatever, or him being opened up early or something like that, or even just, I don't know, vampire mind manipulate. I don't fucking know. I think you could figure out a way to do it personally, because that's
I'll
just
sit on
me.
it. I'll see if I can crack it.
I mean, either way,
Yeah.
when you do, and you better have a trilogy of this, because I do think you have enough. When you do, I gotta know why the fuck in 1,000 years the world ends.
Well, we talked about it, like either the world ends or he got launched off of Earth years prior.
So did I misread it? Because it did seem like you wrote it as this is Earth, like Earth did explode or something, like the planet exploded and everything like that.
All he was doing is just boundlessly drifting through space at the speed of an asteroid. So he's just floating through space in that coffin. But the thing is, when that coffin opens and the last touch of the atmosphere, which we haven't talked about the Extremite at all yet, but the last touch of Earth's atmosphere, which is the source of magic for all beings that use it, leaves his casket, suddenly he's just a corpse and he just decomposes. And all that remains of him is a big old empty sarcophagus just floating through space. That's it.
That is true. That was interesting. The extra. So this is probably my biggest critique. I read Drink's only chapter, and by the end of it, I said, "What the fuck did I just read?" I don't understand any of it, and I will say, because I do eventually want to go through this. Just as a fun little thing, I do want to be like, okay, this is how I would have structured the chapters, because I do remember in the beginning you invite the reader to reread it and like kind of read it in your own different way, and so I do want to go back and be like, okay, this is how I would structure everything, and I would put Drake's chapter first, only because I'm like, what the fuck am I reading? And this is like, I don't know, man. You got to explain to me Drake's only chapter, because I literally am just like, what the fuck? Am I high right now? What is going on?
Let me first. That was the goal. Let me first comment on that last part there, where you can read it in your own way. You're absolutely right. Were the book not already teetering on 350 pages, I would have added in a timeline at the end of the book, like a chronological. Don't read it this way unless you've already read them, but you can hypothetically read it in order. Like, there is a way. Obviously, that would spoil everything if you first get introduced to all the stuff that happens later. But no, so to talk about the Extremite a little bit, that was something pretty high concept that I had wanted to put into the book from an early point. The point of the chapter being there is to give a little more context and understanding as to what happens with certain characters. So specifically the Mummy, because he's connected to the Extremite, he can calculate. So like all particles are in a position. And it is theorized that if you had a supercomputer that could calculate every single particle in the universe and the path it's on and where it's going, you can calculate through brute force where the future will be based on all these predetermined paths of all these particles. And you can see infinitely into the future. So basically the Extremite is like, it's atmosphere. The Earth's atmosphere is alive. And it came to Earth whenever it formed historically in real life. And it is a sentient entity. But the thing about it is that it does two things. One, it is the source of magic. So anything that bends the laws of physics in the book is done by the Extremite. You have to be on
right.
Earth to do
Yeah,
it.
I got.
That's why nothing is an alien. That's why there's no aliens in the book. Everything is earthly. Two, the other thing about that is that much like a cactus has needles to prevent animals from eating it, if you get curious about the Extremite and want to learn what it is and how it works and do like tests on it and discover that it's a real thing, it will slowly kill you. You'll lose brain cells as time goes on until you're just dead. So Drake's only chapter is like the only documented scientific evidence of the Extremite existing. So the Gargoyle has now read it.
Right.
So what's his fate? So I would have a subplot in a sequel be the Gargoyle constructing whatever machine Drake used to test it while slowly going insane and dying from it. So maybe the only hope is to affect his memory of it so that he doesn't lose any more brain cells. I don't know. That's all down the line. But the Extremite, it provides context. And that's why when, at the very end, when the Mummy opens the sarcophagus, Extremite, the atmosphere leaves the coffin because of pressure, and there's no Extremite left. He's dead.
Okay.
He's not alive with magic anymore.
That's true. All right. No, yeah, okay. So, yeah. So we've talked, I think we've talked a good amount about your book. And that was Jingle Bell Rock, one of my favorite holiday songs. We're closing in on midnight for this beautiful Christmas Eve, and Christmas Day is quite upon us. Unfortunately, I do have some disturbing news to share. It's been reported that a couple murders have been found. Mysterious ones. While I couldn't get too many details from my lovely listeners, there was reports of pinholes on the neck. Spooky. But let's try not to think about it during the holiday season. And coming up next is a song that both people love and everyone in retail hates. Mariah Carey's All I Want for Christmas Is You. I did kind of want to touch on, just because I think it's interesting, us two, we're both... At this point, for people who listen to this and follow my channel, I don't think it's any secret that I'm trying to make my own monster films and stuff, and I try not to give too much build up or anything of my plans publicly, but you know, at this point it's obvious if you follow me on Instagram and stuff and see what I try to hint at. We're both people who had our own ideas for making monsters, but correct me if I'm wrong, you pretty much like saw the films as an adult, whereas I watched a lot of or not every film, but I did watch all the Wolfman stuff as a child. And am I right on this?
Yes.
Am I mostly right on this, or?
Yeah. So I had seen like pieces. I had seen like obviously Van Helsing when I was a kid. I'd seen classic Dracula when I was a kid. Like certain films here and there. But as an adult, in like 2017, 18, we had started the Monsterthon on the channel. It was like the first big thing we did on the channel, where we watched and commentated on every single one. And that led me up to now, where I got a deeper appreciation and understanding of film history, because, these characters that I had already loved from other media, this is kind of their source in film. That wasn't their source because they were in books prior, but in film, them interact with each other. Certain tropes are established on screen, like Dracula being the head of the monsters was invented in Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein.
Yeah, that's true.
And that's kind of been the trope, even in my book. That's like the thing you do, because that narratively makes the most sense because he has a lot of power and stuff like that, sure. But that's the case in Monster Squad. That's the case in Van Helsing, Hotel Transylvania, like everything. So seeing those movies kind of gives a great context. So yeah, I had seen it later in life and appreciated it that way.
Yeah. Whereas I hadn't seen. I mean, again, I hadn't really. I'd seen The Mummy or Stephen Sommers' Mummy when I was like a kid, and I'd seen the sequel too, and all three of those films. But I grew up. I watched the original Wolfman, and I had seen all the original Frankenstein films and the House of Frankenstein. I didn't have a chance to watch House of Dracula or Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein until college when I bought the Blu-ray set of Wolfman. So I grew up as a kid watching all these films through middle school and like just like having it set in my head like this is the way I see monsters, and like just me as a kid, and just like obviously you just go through in your head and like kind of build up this whole thing. I had seen Creature from the Black Lagoon and Invisible Man too. And I just like I kept building it, and that's just continued to build through a chapter. So that's why just as a creator, I have such a strong sense of like this is what I want to see. This is how I would do it and stuff, because I've had this since childhood. So for me it's just like, oh, this is what I could kind of see, and the older I got, the more like details I could kind of like pick up that at this point, if I'm being realistic, details and stuff in those original films that I'm just adding to it as a fan. But I still find that interesting how like you have it as that, and I have watched all of them now, and I do have that same appreciation for those stories, and just like for a like, oh, this is how film kind of like went. And I think that's interesting, because for me, when I want to know how like your mindset kind of went into this for like creating your own set of monsters and everything kind of goes, because for me it was very much like I didn't want to just like for me it's always been like I want to see what those black and white movies can be revived from like the rules that were set in there, and like kind of like the story context has been established, and I kind of want to like bring that into the modern world and like see like, okay, can I make this kind of work from the classical aspect and only sticking to those classical characters and everything. So what was it for you? Like how did like your mindset of like, okay, this is my goal, besides just obviously having them all together in one book?
So it's really funny you say that. Audience, we didn't plan this out. That's the question I'm like really happy to answer. Like,
oh, great.
So going into it, I'm really glad you asked it. Going into it, I was like, oh well, I have to do a book, and I have to realize my vision. So I can't do a movie. I don't have money. I have money. I don't want to burn it all on a film and then have no money.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, I'm gonna do a book. I'm gonna do a story where I have full creative control, and it's just a proof of concept for what I would hypothetically do if I could do with the characters. So my first thought was, let's make a book sequel to all the classic movies. 2 roadblocks on that. 1, I ain't got the rights. 2, more importantly, that exists. It's called Return of the Wolfman, and you loved that book.
Amazing book.
So I kind of started reading that book. I started reading it, and it's like, wow, this is following up from the ending of Abbott and Costello. That's kind of what I would do, so it ties it right in. I'm not going to touch this. I think it's been done. I'm proud of that book for existing. I haven't finished it, but I'm glad it exists.
Oh, you need to finish it, man. It's so good.
One day I will. One day I'll read all 3 and have big thoughts. But
don't even worry about the sequels.
The next thought was like, okay, well, all these characters are public domain, like Dracula, the character, Frankenstein, the character, the books they're based on. So let's write a book sequel to all of those books that have all of those characters going back. But I soon realized that, only Dracula and Frankenstein kind of were books. Everyone else is like, Mummy is like legend, right?
Yeah. Mummy's literally just from history.
Yeah, Wolfman's an original character. I would have to use Dracula and Frankenstein and then invent everything. But then more importantly, Dracula dies at the end of Dracula. I have to write in that he comes back. Frankenstein is off frozen in the Arctic. Maybe it'd be interesting to bring him back, but other media has already kind of done that.
Yeah.
House of Frankenstein in 1997, the bad thing, did the exact thing I would do, which is thaw him out of the ice. But so in any case, I was like, damn, that's kind of a non-starter too. Plus, there, a lot of these other characters are not immortal. Like Hunchback, who dies, is not immortal. Phantom, who dies, is not immortal.
H.G. Wells, the Invisible Man, he dies at the end of that, and all you have left is the barkeeper trying to decipher his coded journal. So yeah.
Yeah, the two immortal guys are both dead or frozen. So it's like so either way, I was like, that's not kind of a non-starter. So going into, I was like, let's do original. Let's just fucking do it. Let's pull the trigger. I've been writing like little tidbits here and there, like to myself, like of gothic horror, very influenced by Edgar Allan Poe, because what he did was write endless amounts of short stories. He very rarely wrote long stories. Usually it's like piecemeal stuff, and that's why I got into him, because 12, 13, 14-year-old me is too lazy. I don't want to read a whole book. But, The Mask of the Red Death bumps if you read that. That's a great story. So I took heavy influence from his stories, and I was like, how do I engage the reader in piecemeals and bite-sized things? And obviously I had to connect it all at the end, but like make it standalone as is. And so I was like, well, if we're going to go original, let's go as close as possible as I can get to those characters while staying legally distinct. Like there's no, Universal would never sue me. This is so unique. It's not even anyway. You could not possibly say the Underlord is Bela Lugosi's Dracula. They're two different characters, different goals. But I will say, one of the key traits of the Underlord is that he is the big proponent of keeping monsters a secret. The reason for that is because in my early thoughts for the book, I was going to have it be a sequel to the classic Universal monsters. Dracula had been assassinated. He had the stake through his chest. So when he comes back to life, however that is, he's now fearing humans, saying, oh shit, humans will kill you even if you're the most powerful dude in the world. So I had that be like a natural character trait of somebody who survived the events of Dracula. But then I made that original anyway. With Paula and the Brute Man, those obscure Universal Monster Trilogy B movies, influences on its sleeve. A lot of the names of characters echo the actors who played them. So there's actually a character called Sigmund Walters, and I took both halves of those names and made them two different characters in the Paula story. And the Brute Man story, I had it's revealed in the epilogue. Her name is Marie Moffat Hatton, because Moffat is his character's last name in his origin story film, and Hatton is Rondo Hatton's last name. Yeah. So technically Hoxton's name is Hoxton Hatton, if you follow that logic, which is kind of a funny name to say out loud, so I never wrote it down, but that would be that character's name there. And then the rest of the story, the three brides, those names come from, coincidentally, Bela Lugosi had 3 wives. He had 4 wives, but 2 had the same name. So that's only 3 names. So I took Iona, Lillian, and Hope and made those 3 names of all those people.
That's interesting.
I think there were 2. Me neither until I looked it up. There's 2 Ionas, I believe, is the duplicate there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And a lot of the other characters I took names from. A character I didn't take names from was the Chamberton family, who you pointed out is one of the most distinct, not like the Frankenstein characters at all, type of characters. So, but I mixed everyone else together, put it all in a big old pot, let it cook, let it sit. And I'm really proud of how I really think, like, when things walk the line between homage and ripping something off, it kind of gets me, like, you got to pay close attention to, like, what it's doing and how it's doing it. But I really am proud of how it turned out. It really is an homage to all those movies, all those characters, all the actors that played them. I mean, Gwen Syedmak her name's Gwen because Gwen is the love interest in Wolfman. Yeah. Syedmak wrote it. So that's pretty influences on his sleeve right there.
Oh yeah, 100%. I think it's really interesting that you talk about the names, because I try to do that too with my names. With Anxiety's Moon, I had the character be named Lance, because I didn't want to just do Larry or Lawrence, but I wanted to do something that like still kind of gave off the same thing, where it's like Lance kind of similar to Larry, it's still an L name, and then Lance sort of sounds like Lancelot, which kind of goes into the whole thing where like Lancelot was a guy who tried to do good, but still, he had his own faults and kind of like did some, if you look into his stories and stuff, he's a tragic character,
Right.
just like the Wolfman is a tragic character. And then you have Claude, who it's very quick in Unseen Obsession, but if you pause it, his full name is Claude Wells, which Claude is obviously a reference to the original Invisible Man actor. I'm blanking on his full name, but it's Claude Rains. Claude Rains, and then
Claude Rains, yeah.
H.G. Wells, the original author of the book.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then I forget his freaking Caden. Caden's his friend's name, which I tried to make it sound similar to, again with Lance. I tried to make a name that sounded similar to the guy that the Invisible Man tries to recruit as his like partner, Kempt. I wanted a K name and kind of have that. So it's interesting that we both had like kind of a similar thing where we wanted to have meaning with the names, where like they actually resembled something. But anyways, I'll let you go on with what you were saying.
I'm really happy you brought that up because Jack Griffin, just called him Jack Griffin in the book as is.
That is true. Yeah, you did.
And the other part about that is that his parents are Claude and Elizabeth West. Claude is Claude Rains. Elizabeth is Elizabeth Moss from Invisible Man.
Right.
West, because his mother's name is Vera West. That's her parents' name. So his grandparents, technically. So Vera West, of course, did gowns on every Universal Monster film. And Invisible Man, his character, it's about the wardrobe. So I figured I would incorporate her. She gets no love, by the way. No representation. Nobody calls her out. She is so talented.
Yeah, for the record, I binge listened to all your monster commentaries up until a point, and they're great. You should give them a listen. They're fucking hilarious. And one of the running things was the Vera West thing. We're like, there's Vera West, and at one point you're like, I'm so scared to not see her because it'll mean she died.
Yes, like, and we found out she only stopped doing them because she fucking died. Like if she didn't die, she would still have done gowns all the way through to the Creature movies. Like that's crazy to think about.
Yeah.
But yeah, no. So Vera West, in an early draft, I was gonna have Vera West be the main character. I kind of changed that because I like the Wolfman main character angle better. I couldn't quite crack like did he kidnap her to be his assistant? Did he want her in the cell? It's just a person in a costume. Why does he want that in a cell? So I kind of wrote that in a little differently. But Vera West was going to be the main character, and she was going to be the Invisible Woman. So that's why I retained that as the backstory for Jack Griffin.
Right.
And the crazy person that breaks in is George. That's the G in H.G. Wells. So that's what that was.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah. No, it's I'm glad you brought up homage, because that's definitely something the Anxiety's Moon Unseen Obsession were the main key takeaways that I wanted to do. Is that I wanted to homage the Wolfman. I wanted to put something that just showed my love for the film. And it originally, what made me come up with the idea for the whole story, was that I had gone on eBay. The Burger King Wolfman toy I had as a kid, and I lost it because that year I dressed up as the Wolfman. I had it in my pocket, and while trick-or-treating it fell out and broke, and I always wanted to get it back. So when I had money finally, because I had a good job and everything, I went on eBay and I found one. I bought it and I grabbed it. I was like, oh, this is so cool. And something inside me kind of clicked, because I had like seen like the Wolfman mask and everything. I was like, how, like, ideas for like a werewolf, and like just as a passing thought, this isn't even my main idea for a cinematic werewolf film, but an idea just kind of passed out of this idea of a character so consumed by his love for media that it consumes him and changes him into that, and he sort of just becomes that through consumption. And originally it was going to be that he puts on the Wolfman mask and kind of just like sort of meanders around and like kills people and stuff like that. But eventually I was like, no, I kind of want to trend and just like fully homage the Wolfman, homage the ideas it has, and like kind of like the the ways of just like the character falls into this sort of thing, and ultimately it was a test of, let me deconstruct the Wolfman, let me deconstruct the Universal Monster formula and see how this works. And I wanted to just kind of like go and like let me see if I'm correct in this formula. And I mean, it's a short film. I do think Unseen Obsession is a stronger one of the two, but as just a proof of concept of like how could I do this character of a werewolf and everything, I think I did pretty good. I mean, obviously anyone can disagree, but personally that was kind of
I think you did pretty good too.
Went into it. Oh, thank you. But yeah, that was my sort of idea with it. I figured since I was like fully just making stuff on YouTube, I could play into the fact that these are inspired by the Universal Monsters, so I just was like, let me just make a world where the movies exist and this stuff is just happening, because why the fuck not? It's fiction.
Right, exactly, yeah. Well, I think you did a great job.
So with that said, unless you have to go, we could save this for another time, but if you do have time, I did want to have a fun thing.
Time.
All right, great. Oh no, I have to open this up again. Oh, thank God I saved it. I had to screenshot all the names. I'd never worked with those tier list makers. Never worked with it before. So I was like,
Are you gonna tier my characters? Is that
I
what you're
did.
doing?
I'm making a tier
Oh
list
my
of your
God.
characters.
Oh no!
Yep. Oh, yeah.
I'm happy to see your opinion. I don't know if I can do that, man. They're
You
my
don't-
babies.
You don't have to do it. You can just give your commentaries and like tell me to go fuck myself if
All
I
right.
do different
That's
things.
what I'll do. I'll sit back. I'll watch you do it, and then every tier you make, I'll comment. I'll opine on the situation. Is what I'll do.
That's fine. so this should be really
Oh
fun.
no!
Oh yeah,
I'm getting put on blast.
you really are. I warned you. I was like, this is gonna be a great one because I can just like, we can talk about it and like your critiques. Again, preference, and I preferenced this before. No matter what I say, it is an amazing feat of what you achieved with this book and everything. So no matter my
you.
critiques or anything, you have done more than I've accomplished, and that should be applauded no matter what. Because writing
I mean,
a
if we're
book
judging
is
it-
not easy.
If we're judging it strictly by amount of monsters on screen, then yes, I think I've accomplished more than you. But you've accomplished unbelievably. Like you've done those like short films. I did a couple short films that were like comedic jokes that won like little teeny festival awards years ago. You've actually said, I'm gonna make my dream happen on screen, and you're doing it. And you're making your third and prepping your fourth. So let's not sell yourself short here. You're doing amazing.
I really appreciate that. Thank you. For the record, folks listening at home, it is not easy, right, making a movie. And my God, it has been this recent one has been a huge headache. I finally hit the point where it's like, oh, so this is what it's like to actually make a movie. With that
Right.
said, we're gonna take a short break.
I always eat what I kill, Gwen. You're here in this cell because no game of any hunt could come close to what you are. You are irreversibly one of them. They are the Devil's League, and they are the greatest game in the world.
Welcome back. Okay, so now we have the tier list. For those of you watching, it'll be on screen. So I think just to have you have a bit more involvement, just so you're not watching pacely, I'll let you choose each character to go through. So
Oh,
we
God.
won't go in like order of the book or like me just like picking. I'll let you decide like who you want me to rank next and everything. So start us off. Who do you want
All right.
first?
Oh God, might I say that I would never choose my children over one another, but if I must, I guess I will pick one to go first. I can at least concede to doing that. Let's go curveball. Let's go Vera, Jack's mom.
Okay. I'm so glad you had this. So Jack's mom, I actually really loved her character up until how her character fucking ended, which pissed me off so much. She gets a solid C.
Oh, okay.
Simply
All right.
because she would have gotten a B, but for the fact that she goes through all, I have my notes. I'm gonna bring up my notes on this because this is my biggest pissed off point about poor Vera, poor fucking Vera. I said I absolutely hate how Vera went out like a bitch. All that strong character growth, and she marries an abusive husband who she just basically put up with until the end and gets killed like that. It felt too cliche and did not match the woman who at 19 knocked out a fully grown housekeeper man and then sadistically took revenge on her parents' killers. You're telling me this same girl decided after this she'd marry some abuse and would be like, I didn't put up with all this crap, but this guy, yeah, I'm gonna put up with. Just real quick, just to stop. Explain to me why that was, Jake, please.
Look, all right, you feeling this way about the character is how Jack feels about his mom, and he just represents his anger in a little different of a way. And his mom has that suit, and she uses that suit to accomplish her own goals, and Jack is aware of that. And when that happened to his mom, that started something in Jack where he felt like he had to protect women in general, and that was the whole thing that led him to Gwen and kind of liking Gwen a little bit, and has that whole thing. So that was the intent behind that.
Oh, okay. You know what? I didn't pick up on that. I'm a man who's willing to admit when he's wrong. I can see it where this woman who had all this strength and then she sort of loses it the older she gets, and Jack frustrated and sees it. You know what? I can relate to that in certain ways. You know what? Well done. She's being bumped up to B because that affects Jack, and I really like Jack, and that explains a lot more. Okay. Also, lol, Jack has mommy issues. JK.
Low key, low to mid key, yes.
Yeah. Okay. No wonder why. And you know what? This is my headcanon. No wonder why he crushes on Gwen.
Gwen a little bit, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah,
it's in his nature.
She gets her. You have redeemed my hatred of that thing because okay, I get it now. I understand. B tier. All right, pick your next one.
Oh God. All right. Let's go with. Well, we got to do at least one big one to start. Let's start with the Underlord.
Okay, the Underlord. All right. Ooh. This is tough for me. This is tough. Personally, I thought he was a bit too OP, but I understand that Dracula is your favorite monster, so I'm going to give you that because obviously anyone making monster content should give their most love to their favorite monsters. So with that all said, I do think a lot about him is very strong. I love that he has the awareness that there is a Pandora's box aspect to trying to control humanity, and that opening that fucks everything up. And I thought that was so cool, and I loved his interaction with the mummy and everything, and there's a lot of things. So I'm gonna put him in a solid A tier.
Hell yeah.
Personally, if I was being petty, I give him B tier because he fucking what he does to Waylon, but as a character, he gets A tier.
Okay, all right. Fair enough.
But that's just a funny joke, right? He really is an A tier character. I think he was pretty good as a pseudo. I see him almost as a pseudo villain if it wasn't for the mummy, as just like a good villain. Anyways, okay.
Well, for parts of the book, he's definitely a villain. Parts of he's definitely not. Let's go with what I can only call, based on the reviews I have of my book, a fan favorite. Let's go with the Gargoyle.
Okay. Gargoyle. Oh, yes. I loved the Gargoyle. His very first chapter, very strong. Wikis. I have it in my notes. That was, at the time, let me, just for clarification, a Wikis company is now my new favorite, is what I put. That was my only note for that chapter, and it is no longer my favorite, but is definitely up there in my favorite chapters. And that was a great way to introduce Gargoyle. I loved the reveal that he was the Hunchback. I thought that was so interesting. I liked everything. I had no issues with anything Gargoyle ever did. I found him so curious of a character. So with that said, I'm going to give him a coveted S tier. Our very first S tier character. He's one of my favorites.
Let's go. All right, cool. High praise all around. I definitely enjoyed writing him.
Oh, wait. One more note. That was so cool when you had him breathe fire, because that's one of the things like people have gargoyles do in media and everything. I was like, I wonder if he's gonna do that. And the way when you had him finally do, I was like, oh, that's badass. So,
did you catch the very subtle setup? I only set it up once. It was in the Wikis company, your favorite up to that point chapter, where. What do you see when you look at me? And the wiki goes, a fire-breathing demon of Lucifer's imagination.
Oh.
And Gargoyle's like, you think I can breathe fire? So, like, there's that moment of the Gargoyle, like, breathes in and then just lets it out, and they just have a bit of a laugh back and forth.
It had been months since I had read that half. Oh, and I love that little moment between him and the wiki, by the way. That was so charming, endearing, where they both have that little laugh between each other. But it'd been so months. If I had like read the book straight through, I probably would have caught on that. I completely forgot about that scene. But yeah,
thank you. It's the only time I ever alluded to it.
That's a good setup. No, that was great foreshadowing. Anyways, okay, so next one.
I'm gonna go with for the audience watching visually, the largest one, Dr. Sigmund.
Dr. Sigmund. Okay.
For context, if you haven't read the book, audience, he's in like 2 chapters. He is not far and away the largest.
He's only in 2 chapters. I really liked him. I think if I have to be completely fair, though, whereas compared to... I like Dr. Sigmund. I like his insanity aspect. I like how he kind of falls into that, and like his obsession with Paula and everything. I thought that was really well done. In fact, Ape Woman's chapter, again, was another one where I was like, oh, wow. Jake is super passionate about Ape Woman. You're the only guy I've ever known who gives a fuck about Ape Woman, and I applaud you because you actually made it very interesting, and I actually gave a fuck. And Dr. Sigmund is really cool. I would have loved to actually know more about him. And he's going in a C tier, but that's a high C tier. And that's only because he is only in 2 chapters, and the second chapter he's in, he's only like in I think a paragraph. And the only reason why Vera goes on B is simply because what you said and the effect he has on Jack's character, which is a very strong character. But we'll get to him when we get to him. So Dr. Sigmund gets a C.
Okay, cool. Great. Let's go with... How about Adam?
Oh, Adam. Okay. Okay. This is one where... So for the audience at home, the book starts out... You better have read this book, anyone who's listening right now.
I've never read the book. I don't know what book we're talking about.
You've never read the book. Wow. Okay. That's you bastard. The prologue starts out really strong, and then we go into retro enablement, and I'm not going to lie, that was one of my least favorite chapters.
Okay.
And it was hard. It was a struggle, I will say. With that said, overall, Adam, he was probably... I hate to say this, he was probably the least interesting of all the characters, of like the main monsters that I found. I kind of was like, I think he was written well. It was just like personal. So this ranking mostly comes from personal preference. I think he has a good arc. I think it was written well. I just didn't really find him that interesting. He goes in a C tier, but he will go before Dr. Sigmund in a C tier. So that's just a personal preference.
Well, then I'm very curious. Let's do Franklin. I want to know what you think of his son.
Okay. Franklin, I think I give Franklin a B because I think he has more context, and I think I like his relationship with Hamlet. I like the fact that he gets to be the one who recreates the poster of Frankenstein meets the Wolfman. And I definitely think he has a much more stronger and active role. Like he's I feel like out of the two between Adam and Franklin, he has more of an effect on the plot overall. So I'm gonna give Franklin a B. Still not one of my most favorite of characters, but if I'm being fair, I do think he's a stronger character in the book.
Sure. Well, thank you. Let's go off the map here. Let's go Scorpion Man.
Okay. Scorpion Man's cool. I liked the idea that like he's created from the God King's like kind of like magic and everything. And he's like his. I thought it was very interesting that he was his guard. I like that. That was a good way to like kind of bring him in from Stephen Summers' Mummy sequel. So we're gonna give Scorpion Man a low B. He'll be on the bottom of that B. So close to a C, but still low because that was a pretty badass fight between Hoxton and all this stuff.
Yeah,
Waylon being able to the fact again. Points for Waylon. Waylon being able to capture Scorpion Man with nothing but him and the Invisible Man. That really insane. So yeah, Scorpion Man was cool.
Exactly. Let's go with the Sigmunds. You know, another one-off.
Okay, the Sigmunds. All right. I think they were great creatures for Hoxton to fight. I found them interesting. But overall, there's definitely characters that I cared about more. So overall, I think I'm gonna give them a C. So I'll give them.
Okay, C is fair.
I'll give it before Dr. Sigmund himself, but not before Adam, because I think. But the Sigmunds were great. They get a strong C because they were a great match for Hoxton to fight. They really showed off Hoxton as a monster hunter.
Thank you. Let's roll that into Hoxton. What do you think? Your favorite character?
Oh, Hoxton. I didn't say my favorite. Gwen's my favorite character in the book. Well, but before she becomes the ultimate monster, Hoxton is objectively, in my opinion, the best character in the book.
Oh,
Hoxton gets the coveted top S tier.
Wow, hell yeah.
Straight up there.
Wow. That makes me so happy.
No, yeah, you did great. You made me give a fuck about the Brute Man. I grew to love him. Full on great character, and well done, my good man. So yeah, Hoxton gets
thank you. I'm realizing now that I had you do Franklin, I didn't have you do Handrew. And might I add, before you start with Handrew, that I would not be surprised if he's in D. I wouldn't be surprised if he's in S. It is just a little teeny character, literally and figuratively in the story context. Just wondering what you think.
I found Handrew endearing. I have a strange question. I don't know how Handrew's supposed to be imagined, but in my head, I saw him as the little demon from Disenchantment. I don't know if you've seen that show. But
Disenchantment, I haven't. Let me look up a picture of it right now.
Yeah, there's I forget what the character's name is.
The demon. Oh, that little like black doodle.
Yeah, that little black doodle devil thing.
You know,
That's how I pictured
in
him. I don't
shape-
know how he's supposed to look.
similar in shape. Yeah, I wish I could verbally describe what I'm imagining, but imagine like a gremlin, but not Goofy. You know what I mean?
Okay.
That size with like longer limbs that could actually do things. You know.
Okay. Well, Handrew is a loyal friend. He's a goblin, right? Is that what it is, or a?
Yes, a goblin.
Okay, yeah. He's a loyal goblin. He provides a hand to Franklin. Which, by the way, did Franklin get the Invisible Man suit, or did he just get a new glove? Invisible. What the hell was that all about? What at his epilogue?
Well, Adam wore the suit.
Yeah,
it's implied
so
they
Adam
took it
stole
off
the
Jack
suit.
and they put it on. Yeah,
Right.
And I know you said like, oh, how there's a spear went through him. Maybe Gargoyle sewed it up. I didn't really think about that. Look, I'll be honest.
Okay. Okay. All right.
It
That's
didn't-
fair.
well, at least my official public PR statement is that it did not occur to me as being relevant enough to the story to dedicate time to it. But I probably should have clarified how that happened.
Okay. I mean, it was just a honestly, at the end of the day, I was just like, wait, what? So that was my only thing. But yeah, so what? So he got the suit at the end of the epilogue. Is that the implication?
Oh, he yes, he was given the suit back. Not
Okay.
back, but Adam had it on when he died, and the Underlord gave it to his son along with the
Okay.
dagger.
All right. Okay, cool. I wanted to. So, anyways, as a loyal goblin, he gets a B tier. He's just so endearing. I can't help it. Yeah.
Thank
It's a
you.
B tier.
So sweet.
Okay.
Let's do. All right, let's just do all three brides in your dealer's choice of order.
Okay. All right. All right. Well, been a little too kind, so I definitely am gonna go here. The brides, I feel like, were probably some of the weakest of the monsters. They all go in D. I'm really sorry. I hate to say this.
Wow.
I don't feel like they had enough distinction between each other. And while I did like their backstories, I did think they were interesting, or like they were well written. I just was like, I don't. They're not distinct enough. They're kind of just all the same kind of thing. And then Gwen becomes one, and I'm sorry, they're going on D.
Okay, fair enough. I thought I made them distinct enough, where, especially at the end. But hey, I wrote the book.
I mean, okay. Maybe I'm just being unfair, but it did kind of feel like I don't know. If I were to go on a deeper dive of it, maybe I could see it. But like just like from memory, I'm like, I don't remember. Okay, just going off memory, I don't remember which one was Lillian, and I don't remember which one was Ilana. And I don't remember which one had like the freak out moment and who loved the Dark Lord. I liked that aspect, and I only remember that Hope is Hope because her name was Hope, and we were talking about and everything. So that's my only like kind of argument for why they kind of get a D tier. I can't visually remember some things. Like I don't even remember what Lillian's backstory was.
That's okay. It's only one paragraph, so I don't blame you.
Yeah.
All right, let's go with Creature from Black's Lagoon, a fun pun that I thought of early on.
I did like that. I thought that was pretty funny that you were like, okay, let me just take out the and add an S, and now we're legally fine from copyright. Well done.
Look, it's like a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle situation. It is a creature, and it is from a lagoon that Archibald Black went to. So
That's
like,
fine.
It says
That's
exactly
fair.
what it is.
For the record, audience listening, this is kind of hard for me to do too, because I consider Jake a good friend, and like talking about this book, I feel so bad for like giving all these critiques. Like, I feel bad like having to like tell him this. Like I don't take joy from saying like, yeah, all the brides are D tier. Like I don't. It's just I'm like I feel bad.
Well, so far we've ranked like half the book characters so far, and you only have the brides in D. So I'll take that as a win on its own.
That's
so.
true. I mean,
All right.
at the same time, I mean, there's got to be someone in the D tier. I mean, I gotta put someone in there.
No, there doesn't. They could all be S. You know.
What are you talking about? No. We gotta.
Wait,
we
do
gotta
you think
be-
I,
we
do you
gotta
think
be
I
a little-
intend to write an S? Or a D, I should say.
I don't know. I mean, apparently you fucking. Apparently you hate Waylon. Anyways, okay, so Creature from Black's Lagoon. I thought the chapter where it's Hoxton who fights the creature, right?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is.
Yeah. That chapter was so fucking cool. Based off all that, I feel like there wasn't enough of a character, so I'm gonna give it a strong top B tier, only because the creature itself, the final one that we end with, I was like, okay, I get it, it's a mom and everything, but it definitely didn't have like as much like of a story around it. So I don't feel like I can fairly give it an A, but it definitely is a B because those things were fucking awesome and you did a really good job with them.
Thank you. I will take the B. Thank you.
All right.
Let's go with saving Waylon. Let's do Paula.
Okay, Paula immediately gets an A tier. You got me to give a fuck about the ape woman. I liked her story. I thought her solo chapter was very gripping and very hard to read at some points. I was like, damn, this is fucking brutal. She does some cool stuff at the very end, and I think it was very sweet. Poor Paula got her entire family taken away by Hoxton, and personally, I think that should have been just left in Hoxton's notes, in the notebook. I don't think it needed to be said in the little I guess it was a little tidbit put on the display cabinet. I felt that was a little weird, and I think you should have just left it in Hoxton's notes. I think that would have been
Really?
because
So,
I read it in the notes first, and I was like, oh, that's cool. And then I read it in the prologue. I was like, now I don't feel smart.
I
for
wanted that
catching it.
there because originally it wasn't there, but then I realized that Hoxton murdered Paula's entire family. Like, am I really gonna write this whole book with Paula never finding that out? You know, that's like a big deal.
I mean, I think
So-
she should find it out in the sequel, but I don't think it should be a random tidbit that Waylon decided to put on in the display room. Which, by the way, that scene of her finding the display room with the skeletons was awesome. I liked that a lot. That was cool.
Thank you. Oh, so it's just that paragraph presence there is what you're talking about. Okay.
Yeah, and
All right,
and
well, hey,
to
I'll
be
take that
fair,
as a win.
I already had realized that, like, I think just the reader itself, like, knowing, like, oh, Hoxton killed off this family. Oh shit, wow, okay. I think that's enough. And since it is in the prologue, it's like, it's not like it really leads anywhere and later in the book or anything. So I don't think it was needed to be put in, but that's just
Fair
a
enough.
personal
All right.
preference from a filmmaker.
Real quick, and I know we got to talk about the next character, but what did you think about her child at the end? It's just a quick cameo, nothing crazy. But what do you think?
An interesting child. I thought that was really interesting where Sigmund's experiment finally came to fruition on that. Other than that, I was like, okay, cool. Kind of apathetic.
Well, because I originally had it so that like she would discover her child's having been like killed and like autopsied by Waylon, who wanted to learn more about her species. But then I was like, that's a little. She's been through so much shit. You give her a win, you know. Like
okay, fair enough, yeah. Yeah, no,
But,
as a
yeah.
concept, I liked it. Overall, I was like, okay, cool. I wasn't here or there about it. I wasn't like, I'm not gonna lie, my heartstrings weren't pulled when I saw it. It was par for the course for me, but it was nice. I have no issues with it. Overall.
all right, cool. Well, let's move on. Let's do the Phantom.
Okay, the Phantom. Ooh, all right, this is an interesting one.
The Phantom,
So-
who is on the receiving end of your favorite line in the book.
Yeah, that is true. This is tough because it took me a while, where I was very confused on who the Phantom was for a while. I was like, okay, is this meant to be the Phantom in the opera? Is he actually a ghost? Is he actually the literal like Phantom with like a disfigured face and he's just sort of hiding in the corner? It took me a while before like enough chapters where I was like, oh, okay, this is what's going on, and then I had to actually go back in chapters to the Gargoyles chapter to be like, okay, so this is the wizard guy that the Gargoyle killed. Good to know.
Mm-hmm.
Overall, I find it curious that the Phantom decided to join the Mummy. I guess just through years of bitterness, I too would just kind of lose it.
So might I influence your decision? What I was
Okay,
intending
go
to do
for
with
it.
the Phantom, in contrast to the Underlord, because the second house chapter has the Phantom and Underlord kind of arguing a little bit about like Phantom saying like, dude, you're talking like somebody who's afraid of like stakes and holy water. You can control all your vampires and rise up and fight humans. And Underlord's like, no, you will die if you do that. And so they're in confliction with each other. The Phantom's backstory comes from a place of he trusted an innocent human and died for it, for putting that faith in a level of humanity. So that influences his, now he's stuck as a Phantom forever, and now he's very bitter because of that, because the Gargoyle as a hunchback killed him. So he's very pessimistic, very fuck humanity, let's fucking go. Whereas the Underlord is
Okay.
like, yeah, fuck humanity, but you got to be smarter than that.
Okay.
So
You
that was
know
the
what?
intent.
I don't think I can rightly put Phantom in any other tier but this tier, simply because one, you make a good point with all that, and because of his influence he has with the God King, he's getting an A tier.
Woo! All right. Now we're talking.
I also thought it was a pretty strong way to make the Phantom of the Opera be a literal phantom, and he's literally haunting the opera house all these years. I thought that was cool, and I
Well,
thought
I
it was
kept
cool with
imagining
the dirt.
Yes, thank you. I wanted a limitation because he's so OP. But I thought it was
Yeah.
interesting, like, when starting the book, I was like, well, I'm going to have this super crazy gang of monsters all fighting each other, then fighting together, and I don't want dude in mask to be one of them. Like, I gotta do something interesting. So, at least for the context of the story I was writing. The Phantom Opera classically is very interesting in his own story.
Yeah, no, but honestly, Phantom was really cool. I liked him. He gets an A tier. So yeah.
Thanks, man. All right, there's only a couple smaller boys out of the way. Let's go with Elsa.
Okay, Elsa. All right, Elsa. If I'm looking out over everything, I get the influence she has with Franklin. I get everything.
The big
I like
thing
her
is
character.
the death appearing before her whole story. I understand that's probably a hindrance on her character.
I put this in this tier simply because I think I would have enjoyed seeing more of her relationship with Adam.
Okay.
She gets a high D. She gets above Hope, Lily, and Ilana. I liked Elsa.
All right.
But I wanted more. So
I will take that in the sense of that's a character that is in technically 1.5 chapters. So it's not in a lot of the book. So that's fair.
yeah. But I recognize the influence she has on Franklin, so I'll let that be known.
Well, let's conclude the Chamberton family with Rebecca.
Oh, okay. This one immediately gets D. I'm sorry. Fucking Rebecca Chamberton. I swear, I was so bored reading her fucking notes and her damn whole thing, and just I just didn't give a fuck. Okay, I get it. I get how important of a character she is, and like her like legacy, which honestly, now that I'm thinking about it, that was a smart way to kind of homage the fact that Dr. Frankenstein has a legacy in all the classic Universal monster movies, with like everyone trying to find his book and everything. So I recognize her formula and stuff. The character herself, man, I was so fucking bored with her by the end. I was happy to be done with that story. I didn't give a fuck what happened to her. I was like,
So,
in fact, it was her that made me hate Adam at first too. So yeah, there we go for Rebecca. But you may talk.
What
now.
did you didn't like when Adam saw his mother in the hospital at the end there? You didn't really gravitate towards that?
I didn't care. I was like, okay, cool. I'm glad Adam did this, but I was like, Jesus, can we? I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm gonna say this. I'm sorry, Jake, but at that point, I was like, okay, yeah, but when do we get back to the house, Waylon's house, and all this shit? Can we get back to that?
Look,
you gave me
that
such
feeling.
See, again, this is where it's like it's a critique, but take it as a good critique. You gave me such cool stuff that I was like, all right, let me get back to this.
All right, that's completely fair. I will say, like, as the author of the book, the things I want you to be the most invested in is the house shit. So the fact that that's what you took away reading the other chapters, it's like, in a way, I won. All right, I'll take that. That's fair.
So what I want you to know is my problems with Rebecca and everything, my disdain, is purely because everything else you wrote was so good. So it's like, yeah, that's all it is.
It'd be weird if you were reading. It'd be weird if you were reading the house chapters. Like, where's the next Just Paula story? I mean, come on.
Yeah.
Like, obviously.
Where's Rebecca Chamberton? The early years. I
want a trilogy of stories for Rebecca. There we go. No.
So yeah.
So now we're into the.
It's not even. Yeah, Rebecca Chamberton isn't even like a critical thing. It's just a fan, a reader thing. I'm just like, ugh, okay. So.
Well,
there we go.
There's 5 left, and 4 are substantial to the book. So let's pick the Mechi, the little boys, and get them in here.
I'm putting the Mechi in B. Okay. And you know what? I just realized that. Officer shit. What was the officer? What was that Mechi's name? Officer Blake. Officer Blake. I really liked. So I'm gonna actually put within the B. I'm gonna put Mechi right here above Vera and all these people because.
All right.
Officer Blake will represent that. I like the Mechi, and I loved the end of Waylon's game chapter where they talk and everything. It was a really great concept, and I think it was a really creative creature that you made, and I really liked it. So yeah. So that's
hell yeah, thanks. Let's get all right. We're getting to the big leagues here. Let's go. Let's do Jack. Okay.
All right, Jack. I absolutely love Jack. He is another favorite character of mine. It was so painful to see him get speared and killed to the point where I actually got confused. I was so stupid, and I was like, oh, okay, so somehow they had Jack come back and like follow him, and then I was like, oh, okay, never mind. I guess it was Adam, and I got confused. So add that.
I thought
to
I had made that clear.
Add that
maybe
to
you
the
blinked and you missed the line where I said that. I don't know.
Look, add that to the confusion of how the suit didn't have a hole in it, because I was like, oh, there's no hole, or the suit's still around, so I guess Jack didn't get killed. So that was my whole thing. That said, that whole like thing where like he does get killed, I was like, okay, that's interesting. I would have thought he just fucking booked it out the front door, but I guess he just waited. And I am relieved to find out that the gargoyle revived him. Thank God. I thought Jack. I love Jack. I love that he's. I love that he sees the suit as a skin of himself. He refuses to take it off. I love that he was an assassin, and then Waylon's like, hey, come on, work for me. He's like, all right, cool. I love seeing him and Waylon working together and all this stuff, and I think it's so cool. And I also like that Waylon put a little like to the greatest assistant. I was like, that's sweet.
Yeah, because I had mentioned like Waylon was so excited. He was talking to Jack like, oh, I finally gave it a name, and Jack's kind of brushing it off like, that's kind of stupid. Why do you need a name? And so I revealed it at the end. The name was Griffin. But yeah.
So sad. So with all that said, and I'm gonna get a little petty here, Jack does get an A tier because personally I think the Invisible Man should be a formula, not a suit. But that's a high A tier.
look.
I love Jack. He's one of my favorites.
That is a high tier. That's high praise. I'll take it. We got just the main boys. We got the two protagonists and then the villain.
One more thing to know about Jack is I really like every time he popped up in the story, I was like, ooh, yay, Jack. Like I fanboyed every time. I was like, ooh, woohoo, we're going back to Jack. Let's see what Jack does. This is cool. So,
Thank you.
and I
He's,
love
yeah.
I love all the little lines he has. I love when like he's helping out Waylon in Waylon's chapter. And one of my favorite parts is just when and I made the joke here was when Jack goes, "Do I look like I need a car?" And my first thought was like, well, no, but you also can't teleport, so I
We
thought
all
that
gotta get
was
somewhere
funny.
somehow.
Yeah, I'm like, all right, calm down, buddy. Like, do you want to do a 5-minute drive or a 10 or a 20-minute walk?
Yeah.
Also,
exactly.
Also, I thought the suit, you did a better Invisible Man than the 2020 Invisible Man film. I thought the suit was
wow.
better. I thought the
Okay.
suit was better because I liked that he didn't take it off or anything, and I fucking hate that technological camera suit, and I thought yours was so much cooler and interesting. It had like a visual and narrative thing where it was like, oh wow, this guy just refuses to take it off and everything, and I like Jack's motivations better, and you did a better, if there was any kind of the Invisible Man as a suit thing, that's what I would want to see. I like that.
Wow,
So,
that might be the highest praise that you may have ever given me because I know how you feel about the suit Invisible Man.
I
All
fucking
right, that's a
hate,
big deal.
I fucking hate 2020's Invisible Man. Part of that was part of that hatred is seeped into Unseen Obsession. If you've watched Unseen Obsession, you'll know what I'm talking about. And I will say, I'm like, yeah, no, I fucking love this a lot better. So, yep. There you go, Jake.
Hell yeah.
Okay. Anyway,
All right.
so big three. Here we go.
Big three. Well, you know who I'm saving to last. So let's go with the God King.
Okay, God King. He would have an A tier because he only has one chapter, or only because of like how it's like, okay, we get him introduced and then it's like, oh, but actually he but hold on, let's stop everything and give you the backstory on who this guy is. And then back then, that critically as a book, again, I've never written a novel, so maybe I'm just completely fucking wrong on this, but personally, if it was like a movie, I'd be like, okay, this is a little breaking momentum. So as that, he would get an A tier on that notice, but as a villain, as a storytelling, as like a good reason of like, okay, who are all these guys gonna fight, and solely on the principle that my favorite scene of all time is from the God King. He gets the low S.
Yes.
God King.
Wow, I made it to
Well
S.
done, sir. You made a good mummy. I like that mummy.
Thank
and this is
you.
coming from a guy who did like Karis as a mummy. So yeah.
Wow, that's high fucking praise. I keep saying it, but it is high praise.
I love how
right.
he's described too, with the green eyes, and like he's his own he's his
Ecosystem.
own ecosystem with the beetles and the scarabs, and ooh, so good. I love that. Also, Gwen's death is fucking brutal, and that was scary to read, and well done. That was terrifying.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Wow, let's go. All right. Let's do Gwen first so we can end with Waylon. Let's do it.
Okay. All right. S tier, my personal favorite. If I were to say ultimate Gwen, as their ultimate monster Gwen would probably get like a B or something. But
It's higher
Gwen
than I thought you'd put.
herself. But Gwen herself, S tier. She's my favorite character in the book. I love how she's written. I love how she's her chapter is introduced. I just, she's great. Oh my god, nothing but praise. Love everything about her. You could, if her being a Van Helsing type werewolf, I don't even give a fuck. I'm like, yeah, cool, pop off. That's fucking awesome.
Thank you. That's fucking awesome. All right, what do you think of him?
Waylon?
Waylon. They're the only guy left.
The only guy left. The man, the myth, the legend. We start the book off with him. We don't end the book with him. The worst ending, the least satisfying ending. Ultimate badass fucking Waylon gets it right here. He is probably my third favorite character next to Gwen and Jack, only because he's not a monster, but original full character, not based off anything. Overall, just Waylon's fucking awesome. I love Waylon. S tier.
Hell yeah. Thank you
S-tier
so much.
character.
That's fucking awesome.
And
Yeah.
Everything.
Oh,
Everything about him.
I'm so happy with this.
Yeah, I don't like his ending, but everything about him and everything I had zero problems with. I never questioned anything. I was never like, I was all in on everything about Waylon.
Wow, that's awesome. I mean, Waylon and Jack, two of your favorite characters. I put a lot of myself into those. Waylon is kind of who I wanted to be. Jack is who I kind of am and realize I am. You know.
Okay.
So there's a lot of me in them, and that's why like they take up so much time in the book and the pages, and there's a lot dedicated, and they have layers and stuff. Because you're right, what you know. I know me.
Oh yeah. No, I'm the same way. I put a little bit of myself into all my scripts and stories, and Lance is a lot of me, and even Claude has a lot of me. There's aspects of me in each of my monsters that I kind of like.
Yeah, Lance, I kind of saw you in, yeah. Not literally just because you are Lance, of course, but I think you did pretty great with that.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad it shines through. So yeah, for those just deciding to listen, which is always intended, there's always an aspect where this is just meant to be put on while you're driving or doing your laundry or dishes. Our full tier is going from the very bottom, D tier. Very bottom is Rebecca Chamberlain, followed by the brides, Ilona, Lillian, and Hope, in any order you want, because that's it. Elsa is very top D tier, so close to C. Followed by C, we start at the bottom with Dr. Sigmund, followed by the Sigmund, or the ones who swim and crawl and run and made me want to shoot my brains out for how many times I read the ones who. That's followed by Adam, who's close to B. Then at B tier, we have lovingly at the bottom of B tier, Handrew, followed by Scorpion Man, Franklin, Vera, the Mechi, and then Creature from Black's Lagoon. In A tier, at the bottom, we have the Phantom, followed by Paula, then the Underlord, and then Jack. And this is finally finished with the coveted S tier of the God King, the Gargoyle, Hoxton, Waylon, and unsurprisingly from the man who loves the Wolfman and werewolves, Gwen.
Hell yes. Let's go.
So there you go. There's your tier list.
I'm glad like the main ones are all like A and S have like the main ones, and I guess aside from the Chamberlain family has like, you know, a little lower down.
A little lower.
Everyone else is like high praise. So I really appreciate that the ones that I wanted to stick really did stick. So I'm happy about that.
That's good. That's good. So you're able to breathe. The tier list is done, Jake. Your characters are off the chopping block. I hope you're.
My babies are finally ranked.
They're ranked. They're ranked. Let it be official. And I'll wait until after the recording for Jake to go tell me to fuck myself for my rank. So that's it. You're done. I'm just kidding now.
Oh man.
Wow.
All right. Well, I mean, I'm blown away. I'm really
Yeah.
flattered.
So, unless there's anything else you wanted to talk about with your book or anything in regards to anything, is there anything else you wanted to say or anything, Jake?
I I don't know if this is a happy thing or a disappointing thing, but the next book I'm writing is not about the Devil's League. It is something else.
Ooh,
But I am writing a new one.
All right.
That's what I'll say.
Ooh.
I'm writing something
Is it
else.
about monsters, or is it something completely out
No.
of left field? Okay.
Out of left field, very different in tone and style than this book.
Alright.
I want to really push myself here because I'm really comfortable writing short horror fiction. So I want to really get out of my
Okay.
boundaries here and see what I can do.
This makes me very excited. This is the first time I'm hearing about this, and I'm assuming this is the very first time we've heard of just publicly. So
Yeah,
Ooh,
yeah, this is an
alright.
exclusive, and I really wouldn't have said
Okay.
that, but you praised and critiqued my book so much. You did so much investment. You read the whole thing. A reward to you, my friend, is a kind of low-key announcement that I am, in fact, going to make another book. So, hell
well,
yeah.
thank you. Well, thank you. Yeah, I gotta ask, and you can be as candid as possible. How did you feel getting play-by-play, chapter-by-chapter critiques, getting a full discussion and critiques, getting a ranking? How did this feel? Did you think I was fair enough? Did some of it infuriate you? Tell me the experience on your end.
I think you were absolutely fair. It was kind of weird to me because you really only sent a critique if it was a critique. If you liked it, you generally didn't share that. Sometimes you did. So at the end of it, when you were done with the book and you're like, wow, that was really fun, I was like, did you like the book? I feel like I've only heard negative things. But you did, in fact, clarify. And during this tier list, you made it clear like why you liked the characters that you did and stuff like that. So, you know, I've come around and I'm actually happy. And of course, as a creative, if you're giving me advice and you're saying like, hey, this is, you know, what I would do differently. This is what could have been different or better or worse or whatever. And I appreciate that tremendously as well. So thank you.
Okay. Well, I'm glad it wasn't frustrating enough. And for the audience at home, for the record, you're right. I could have probably said if I liked a chapter more or something. I mean, I did generally say like, okay, yeah, this chapter was good or something. But for the record, when I really liked something, I made it known. So I just want to say, to be fair, there was a lot of there were chapters where I was like, oh, this was good. So, but yeah.
Appreciated.
All right, cool. Well, I'm glad you enjoyed it. It was great having you on the show. I hope to have you back sometime in the future. So we'll find out.
Well, I will definitively have you back. So
Oh yes. Oh yeah. No, you're stuck with me. We have a group chat, and I literally am like, I have to be here for the next few episodes. I have to. So.
fuck yeah, hell yeah, let's get it.
Yeah, hell yeah. No, I legitimately enjoy being on the Monster Podcast. So, with that said, if you have anything you'd like to plug, now is your chance, Jake.
Well, I'm not sure when you're going to upload this, but our channel right now has a few videos slated, so I guess I'll just fire them off now. We just did our...
Okay.
So we did a joke Craven review we recorded months ago, and then pretended it was a real review, and then revealed, oh shit, this is actually... We just watched the trailer, and it's just so generic. And then I did a real review that I dropped today in real life, saying, no, I actually did see it today, now it still sucks. We were kind of right with our guesses. But... aside from that, real videos coming out. We got a Twilight commentary. We've done 3 so far. We have the 4th one dropping. The 5th is going to be in the future as soon as copyright stops being terrible, because it's terrible. We have our Indiana Jones commentary, the Dial of Destiny, finally concluding that saga, that little marathon we were doing there. The last thing I will say is that, to nobody's surprise, the next episode of the Universal Monsterthon is not Wolfman. It is, in fact, the Abigail commentary, which I had not done. So now it's finally edited, finally going to upload at a certain point, probably after the next Universal Monster episode.
Nice. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
As for me, this episode, I'm gonna try to do more podcast episodes because, I would like to, but we're probably not going to be seeing anything regarding the next monster film anytime soon, unfortunately. January, I might drop a trailer, but at the moment, we are in production, but we're in a hiatus of production for the holiday season. It's the holiday season, and I hate life.
That's how it goes.
Thank you, everyone who listened, and I hope you have a fantastic Christmas. This should go up in December, so I literally have nothing else to do this month, so... and I love to edit, so yeah. So yeah, this will be going up in December, and yeah, no, I hope everyone has a Merry Christmas, and thank you for watching. Goodbye.
Merry Christmas to yourself, Xander. Farewell.